It's time for Twig This Week in Google. Stacy and Ann have the week off, but Jeff Jarvis is here, along with our favorites, Kathy Gellis and Kevin Marks. We'll talk, there's lots to talk about. We'll talk about Veecon, the big NFT conference this past weekend in Minnesota. Wow. We'll also talk about a digital driver's license that's tough to forge, but easy to crack, and a gel film that may solve the world's drinking water problem. All that and Seth Green's Bored Ape. I guess it's gone missing. Coming up next on Twig.
Podcasts you love.
From people you trust.
This is Twig.
This is Twig. This Week in Google, episode 665, recorded Wednesday, May 25th, 2022. The Apes of Wrath. This episode of This Week in Google is brought to you by Codecademy. Join over 50 million people learning to code with Codecademy and see where coding can take you. Get 15% off your Codecademy Pro membership when you go to codecademy.com and use the promo code TWIG. And by 8 Sleep. Go to 8sleep.com/twig for exclusive Memorial Day savings through June 6th. Cool down this summer with 8 Sleep. Now shipping within the U.S., Canada, and the U.K. And if you're listening after June 6th, well, use the same URL to check out the Pod Pro cover and save $150 at checkout. And by Policy Genius. If someone relies on your financial support, whether it's a child, aging parent, even a business partner, you need life insurance. Head to policygenius.com/twig to get your free life insurance quotes and see how much you could save. It's time for Twig, This Week in Google, the show where we cover everything in the Googleverse and beyond. Jeff Jarvis is our chief in charge of Googling.
And beyond. No, I do the beyond.
You're the king of beyond. TikTok,
that's what I
media. Do. He is, after all, the Leonard Tao Professor for Journalistic Innovation at the Craig Newmark Graduate School of Journalism at the City University of New York. Stacy has the day off. Kathy Gellis is here, back in with us from Tech Dirt fame. She is also a professional attorney at cgcounsel.com. Hello, Kathy. Good to see you.
Thanks for having me.
Welcome. We love having you on.
Yes.
Yeah, there's always stuff right up Kathy's alley. We need the attorney. We also need the king of the open web. Our good friend Kevin Marks is joining us from indieweb.org, from his home on the moors.
Well, I did climb up a hill this week, so I'm showing off by taking a photograph on top of the hill.
It's great to have you, all of you, on a sad day in America. Sad to say, they never seem to stop, unfortunately. Last week, 10 days ago, 11 days ago, when the Buffalo massacre happened, we heard people blaming Twitch and 4chan and Discord for both radicalization and communication and so forth. I think, again, they're saying there is some involvement with, but you got to stop blaming the internet for this stuff. That seems to be the least culpable agency here.
And I think Leo, that the conversation has shifted. I think
it might
have a lot
have.
more about Tucker Carlson, about Murdoch, about media as a whole, and less about the internet per se.
I mean, I'll be honest. I will defend Tucker Carlson's right to say whatever he wants.
Oh, he could say whatever he wants, but doesn't mean Rupert Murdoch should be paying him to say it.
Well, or Rupert. I mean, I guess he owns the presses, so I guess he can say what he wants. But that's protected speech. But that doesn't protect him from blame and ignominy. Exactly. You know what I'm saying. None of that. So
the problem is the outrage conflates the issues. So I get very nervous about, okay, great, they're not, people aren't kicking the internet and my job is to protect the internet. So, okay, that's a relief. Except they're still taking issue with some things that are First Amendment protected, because I don't think people see the difference of the toggle between there ought to be a law that ought to be illegal versus that kind of crap up with which we should not put. And I think that's a very different question about what we should tolerate as polite society as acceptable messages within our midst versus what we should have a law to make sure it can never be spoken. And because there's not a good understanding of that difference, you end up seeing things that are, we should ban Fox News, and I think we should not watch Fox News, but that's a very fundamental different question of saying that the government should step in and make it impossible to watch Fox News.
I absolutely agree. Absolutely agree. In fact, in some ways you can, I mean, honestly, I'd like to blame the judiciary that released Kyle Rittenhouse after he used an assault weapon on people on the streets and found him not guilty. That was a message to 18-year-olds all over the country. It's okay. So, I mean, there's lots of blame to go around.
I want to blame my cable company for making me pay for Fox News
good point.
and OAN.
Good point. That's an interesting distinction. We could push cable companies as its customers to stop carrying crap like that.
Well, or even not that. Even, they're not carrying RT anymore, so fine. They have a right, just like Twitter does, to decide what they carry and what they don't carry.
You can't stop them legally, but we could, as customers, say something.
We could have an a la carte, which has come up again and again and again. But if you want an ad boycott of Fox is meaningless because the pillow guy is going to be there no matter what.
Right.
And Murdoch doesn't really make his money now that way. He makes it from subscriptions either directly with Wall Street Journal or indirectly through carriage fees and cable.
Right.
And if we didn't all pay for Fox and chose not to, that would have an economic impact on him.
Kevin, you're in the UK, sitting on the outside looking in. You lived in the US for a long time. Do people think we're nuts?
Yeah, I mean, we had a school shooting in the UK 27 years ago. It's a similar one where somebody went into a primary school and shot a lot of children. And we passed a gun ban within a year. And it was a handgun ban as well. So, yeah, there was a response to that, a legislative response to that here. And similarly in Australia, they've passed weapon bans as well. And yes, it would be harder in America because there are many more people with weapons and many more weapons. But it's not impossible.
We have 5% of the global population, 42% of the global guns.
But I think a third of America owns those guns. So it's once again, as we constantly see these days, it's the tyranny of the third.
Yeah.
And I today somebody on Twitter said, I'm a proud non-gun. People talk about they're proud gun owners. What does it mean? Well, I'm a proud non-gun owner, and I'm a proud non-gun owner. I have never fired one. I never intend to.
Yeah, maybe it's time. I mean, for a long time, we've kind of a little bit kowtowed and said, well, we have the right, the Second Amendment, blah, blah, blah. Maybe it's time to stay. No. It's time to stop.
There's low-hanging fruit we could go for first. The problem is the conversation is so polarized where, okay, let's accept that there's an appropriately libertarian argument for why certain weapons should be ownable by the population. But it doesn't necessarily mean that it extends quite as far as it's getting extended. I think there's a lot we could do before we actually start bumping up against what should our inalienable rights actually be. There's a lot of sense you could bring to the policy discussion to where you haven't really interfered with the liberties, but you have sort of maybe bottled up some of the more risky consequences that we keep tempting. But we're not having a reasonable conversation. Everything is very polarized, all or nothing. And I just don't think we're going to get to something sensible if those are the two polar positions and nothing can exist in the middle.
I do. A little bit of a bright light, I guess. The news media, at least as far as I can tell, is not naming the shooter in the last two events, which I think is exactly right. I don't think there should be any glory associated with this. No one should mistake. Well, that's the thing. But all the mainstream coverage I saw barely mentioned the shooter as is right.
As it should. But the fringe media and the New York Post and
maybe the places that those people go
senators
are glorifying him. Yeah.
Both,
but they did worse than that.
Spreading the shooter. No, they lied about the shooter and they said they made up a bunch of stuff about it that wasn't true.
Yeah, they named innocent people as the shooter.
Yes.
So in a sense, we all, in the accurate information, people have been making stuff up, and in a way that's actually causing harm. So maybe it isn't really the way to. It's hard to know what the right, most ethical and responsible way to report on this actually is, because you're sort of damned if you do and damned if you don't. If you don't give credible information, people gap fill, and they gap fill badly. So that's a problem. But on the other hand, if you give the credible information, then there's consequences of what does it mean for that information to be known.
All right. Well, I was just trying to give somebody some credit for doing one thing right.
There's no room for that in 2022.
Oh man. I didn't really. I think we have to acknowledge it. I didn't really plan to spend a lot of time talking about it, but I think we do have to acknowledge it. It's such a great tragedy that happened 10 years ago at Sandy Hook, and should never have happened again. Never ever happened again. And it's time maybe to stop soft pedaling this and start taking a hard line on it. And
last night, this is going to sound ridiculously trivial in this context, but I was. Last night, Fred Guttenberg, who's just heart-rending when he speaks about this, was on with Nicole Wallace.
One of the parents of Sandy Hook
right.
child.
No, of Parkland.
Parkland, okay.
Whose daughter would...
Isn't it sad that we have so many that we
confuse them? His daughter would now be a freshman in college, and he's watching his friends' children in college where his daughter is not. Last night, he I won't do it for this. I don't want to get John mad, but he used the F word. And I thought, watch, MSNBC is going to apologize for this, and I'm going to get really angry. And they didn't, and they put up video, even though in the text they didn't use it, but they put up the video. And I dare the FCC to come and complain about a passing obscenity.
If ever there were an appropriate use of strong language, that would be it.
And so the other thing that's interesting, I don't know if you saw it because you were on your air quotes air, but Beto O'Rourke,
it's the air. I'm floating through the air. Somewhere.
Beto O'Rourke.
Beto interrupted Governor Abbott's unseemly fundraising event the very next day.
Right, which I think was great, and I think that we're at a take no prisoners moment on this.
Well, that's kind of how I feel. I feel like, I see a lot of rhetoric, especially from senators who have to deal with the other 50 senators saying, well, maybe we can do some minor compromise. We've got to do something better than nothing. You know what? Vote the sons of bitches out in November, period. It is time to say, for the majority to stand up and say no more, period.
And it is the majority.
It is the majority. Yeah. And you know what? They're going to keep taking money from the NRA. The NRA is going to have its...
I thought the NRA was bankrupt, by the way. I really don't understand that. They gave $13 million to Mitt Romney. I literally thought they were bankrupt. Where's this money coming from?
Let's talk about the Florida social media law, because, Kathy, you've got an article in this week's Tech Dirt about... and the way that Tech Dirt capitalizes titles, this is good. The problem with the otherwise very good and very important 11th Circuit decision on the Florida social media law. So first of all, is SB 7072 like the Texas social media law?
Okay, so we can't escape this conversation not talking about Texas. Texas is also going to be relevant to what we're talking about. And Texas just filed something at the Fifth Circuit saying our bill is totally different than the Florida one. So this 11th Circuit decision that largely threw out the Florida social media bill, the counsel for the plaintiff appellant, the plaintiffs who are challenging it, submitted as supplemental authority, like, Dear Fifth Circuit, while you consider authoring an actual decision about how you want to adjudicate this appeal, you might want to know that your fellow circuit over here took the bulk of a law that was trying to regulate content moderation in general, and said the 11th Circuit found that it implicated the First Amendment rights of platforms. So they just went back to the Fifth Circuit and said, by the way, you might want to know that that's how a fellow court decided things.
How bound is the Fifth?
To that,
these are both federal courts of appeal, but is the Fifth in any way bound by what the 11th does? Are they a completely standalone independent?
So they are standalone independent. The 11th Circuit would be regarded as persuasive authority, but the circuits are free to do what they want, except they're all supposed to follow circuit precedent and national precedent. So if the Supreme Court has actually articulated something, then the circuits are all bound to, they're not supposed to come up with a...
Yeah.
They have to be consistent with what the Supreme Court said. Now, that gives you a lot of wiggle room as a court, because then you basically try to argue that what the Supreme Court said is inapplicable to the case before you. Right. But they're supposed to follow that. So when the 11th Circuit looks at Supreme Court precedent and says, based on the things that the Supreme Court has said before, when we apply it to this type of law, we think that there's a problem. It's bumping up against the First Amendment interests of the platforms, and we've decided that's unconstitutional. But the problem is, and the reason we have to go back to Texas is, so both states had their own laws that they came out. Florida had their law, which involved the weird theme park exception, where it applied to all platforms unless they happen to also own a theme park as part of their corporate assets. And Texas,
which, by the way, given how Governor DeSantis feels about Disney these days, they probably wouldn't have left that in.
Oh, they took it out. They actually literally took it out. They amended the law while it was getting in the appeal process. They actually
Disney, we don't like you anymore. You're too woke. We're taking you out. So
they took it out, and then they wrote to the court while it was busy, chewing on this decision to update the court to say, by the way, the theme park exemption is no longer in the
that's
in the
hysterical.
law. But it's kind of like, from the other side, the people challenging it, it's kind of like, yes, they're right. This just shows how arbitrary and capricious and how offensive it is to First Amendment editorial judgment that you would toggle it about who your political enemies are, and this is who you're going to target with your law.
What was the show title last week, Leo?
I don't remember. What was it?
About laws that are made just for one party?
Is this a quiz? I was only half here last week. I don't remember.
Oh no, it wasn't last week. Oh hell, it was October. No, it was the week before that. Never mind.
The gotcha moment failed.
It did. I just got myself. Yeah.
So
Bill of
both
Attainder. It was
Bill of Attainder.
Oh yes.
Good old Bill of Attainder. Who could forget him?
William of.
Yes.
So both states had these laws that kind of did slightly different things. They had a slightly different focus. Florida's is more about journalism and political campaigns, and Texas, maybe that was the political campaign. They had a little bit difference in their orientation, but basically they were fundamentally that the state wanted to tell big tech platforms how they got to do their moderation and put a lot of onerous requirements that would take away their ability to do it freely.
Let's be in the new spirit of calling things what they really are. This was don't ban Donald Trump from Twitter law.
Yeah, it boils down to how dare you
and others. But yes. You're not allowed to ban Donald Trump from Twitter law. Okay.
Right. So
Kathy, I've got a question for you. Oh, you keep going, but then I'm going to have a question for you. Keep going.
Okay. So both states had laws like these, and both states' laws got challenged. And in both instances, district courts looked at them and said, we're going to enjoin this, or at least most of it, because we see that this is conflicting with the First Amendment rights of platforms. So the laws were enjoined. Nothing could happen with those laws. Then each state appeals because they're unhappy with that. They want their law. So Florida appeals to the 11th Circuit, and that appeal was heard first. But then we were waiting for a decision for a while, which is not abnormal. It usually takes a long time to get a decision. And then Texas had appealed, and that was heard by the Fifth Circuit in an oral argument that didn't really go very well. It was very strange, sort of some of the questions being put back at the plaintiffs. But then it quieted down, but then all of a sudden, out of the blue, 2 or 3 weeks ago, both laws were currently enjoined, and then the Fifth Circuit, with no explanation whatsoever, came out of the woodwork and said, with a 2-to-1 decision, we're going to stay the injunction, which basically in this one-line order said, guess what? The Texas law gets to go into effect right now. Whatever constitutional effect it has, be damned. It wasn't going to talk about it. It didn't explain why it thought it wasn't defending the First Amendment. It put it in, and the Texas law is active law right now.
Pending, of course, it's still on trial and pending a judgment down the road, but it's
pending that they actually issue a ruling on its constitutionality, which we're still waiting for.
Right.
So then this led to an emergency application to the U.S. Supreme Court by the plaintiff challengers to say, hang on a second, we need some relief because this is a really bad law. We definitely think it's implicating our First Amendment rights. And how can this be live? We can't even appeal it because there's nothing to appeal because there's no decision. So we shadow docketed. There's an emergency application to the U.S. Supreme Court to ask it to give some relief. And I wrote an amicus brief in support of this, so I have shadow docketed too.
Oh, good.
And so
for
now
you.
we're waiting.
But
yes, this is quite a big deal. But
the justice in charge of the Fifth Circuit is Samuel Alito.
Justice Alito. Now, he did issue an order to make the state respond. So the state had to put in a filing. So there's some tea leaf reading that suggests that this is being taken seriously. But we've now been waiting.
He could do two things. He could send it back, say, nope, not going to get involved. Or he could then refer it to the other justices.
I'm not entirely sure what all the options are because this
Shadow
is also
docket is so
really
weird. Yeah.
It's underarticulated. The U.S. Supreme Court is normally very regimented with a ton of rules, including if you're filing like as an amicus, there's a ton of rules ordinarily. But in this case, there's no rules. They have some proposed ones, but basically this is sort of like they're making it up as they go along, which is really not something you want to see in your judicial system. But nonetheless, it's sort of as a litigator, it gave you a little freedom of like, I didn't have to like spend money on expensive printing because that wasn't a rule here. We just kind of shoved it in with like, this looks reasonable. I think they'll take it. But this is really not how you want to do your litigation.
We're seeing more and more of these shadow docket orders, unfortunately.
Right. So where we are now is nothing's come out of the Supreme Court yet. Nothing's come out of the Fifth Circuit to explain its order, but early this week, the 11th Circuit, I think, rushed out their decision, and their decision took aim at most of the Florida law to say this is really colliding with First Amendment rights of platforms, and gave a very full-throated analysis to talk about how a lot of the arguments like common carriage and this, that, and the other thing were like, nope, this is wrong. You've really done something that's unconstitutional. So it mostly continued the injunction on most of the Florida law. My textured post is raising concern that they didn't fully enjoin it. They let a few provisions go through, and I think it's problematic that they did, but it's not the end of the litigation train for that. But that only shuts down the Florida law. The Texas law is still live, and we need somebody to give us some relief or at least some explanation on why did the Texas law get to go into effect, given that the 11th Circuit has just articulated a very sensible basis of why these types of laws are hugely problematic and interfere with First Amendment rights of platforms.
Did Florida or will Florida then send that to the Supreme Court, or do you know? Or?
I would not put it. I would not be surprised if they did, but to do
Who
it,
is
they
that?
would.
Who is the justice in charge of the 11th Circuit?
You know, all the judges on the 11th Circuit who rendered this unanimous opinion were all appointed by Republican presidents at some point in time. One is a Trump judge, one is, I think, is a Bush judge of some sort, and I think one was a Ford or somebody. So, yeah, so this was something where even conservative judges looked at it and said there's a problem.
Clarence Thomas is the justice who would hear a shadow docket appeal.
Oh, jeez. Oh, no.
So anyway.
Oh, I see what your point is.
Yes, you get what I'm saying? Who's the Alito for the 11th Circuit? It's Clarence Thomas.
Oh,
well, so the other thing, though, is, so I told you there were amicus briefs that went in support of this emergency application. Most of them went in support of the amicus application, but there's two went in support of Texas, because Texas had to say, no, our law is totally fine. Leave us alone. Nothing to see here. Go away. And they had two amicus briefs, one of which was by Florida, and I think a bunch of other very red states that showed up to say, this is totally fine. We should totally be able to regulate the internet the way these laws are articulated. So they've kind of already presented themselves to the Supreme Court a little bit. And I don't think it's a mystery to the court what Florida thinks about it. But the procedural posture of this is very strange. It's always strange a little bit because there's always options and sort of like chess strategy that you get to play out in terms of how do you litigate something from beginning to end. But it's definitely extremely strange because we're in shadow docket land and normal rules are not applying. And what the Fifth Circuit did to, in that one-line order, unleash a law that there had already been a very articulate decision saying was unconstitutional, and they just let it go out into the world anyway.
Let me ask you,
that's very strange from an injunctive standpoint.
Let me ask you, if these laws were about a newspaper instead of social media, would there still be the same back and forth over this, or would it just be, no, obviously, you can't do that?
There are some open questions about what is the right analog to apply to the internet. So to some extent, this is not completely ridiculous. But on the other hand, there's some really weird analysis of precedent going on with this. So I wouldn't even trust that newspapers are necessarily safe. We're kind of making it up as we go along.
That's where we are now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Can I ask another question, Kathy, that puts it into... I make the First Amendment argument, obviously, constantly, and that compelled speech is not free speech is a tattoo I'm going to get put on my chest. But I have a different basis for this question. If a bar can say, I don't want to serve Leo. I don't serve people in white shirts. I don't like them. You can't come in here, right? They have that right.
I should explain. I am wearing a white shirt today.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, for those who can't see.
Narrator.
Very old.
Wearing a white shirt.
It's not some sort of euphemism for anything. I just happen to be wearing a white shirt.
Secret McKinsey consultant. So it's a white polo shirt.
Yes.
Give me. Right. So, but a bar as an establishment, as a private establishment, could say we choose whom to serve, as long as you don't do it on the basis of race and other protected classes, right? Why is that not also the same for a Twitter, that we choose not to serve?
That's what I was kind of getting at with my question too. Are we tweeting social media as different somehow from what standards would be for other businesses or journalism, but apparently not.
Well, I lost the thrust of that question. But
he's saying basically a business can say no to Leo. I would say you can't tell a newspaper what it can or cannot do, and that seems like established law. But why is it that we can?
How can you suddenly tell Twitter whom they must serve?
So the argument that Texas and Florida would make is that they start to throw out two ideas, both of which were fully rebuffed by the 11th Circuit, and correctly so. But one of them is this idea that social media is, quote unquote, and I use it in quotes derisively because I don't buy this at all, but it's the new public square. And that if you are the new public square, you have a different sort of duty to all comers. And this is the second idea that they throw around, which is, and you are a common carrier, so therefore you must take all comments. So they basically try to look at these businesses and say, oh, no, you're not the bar anymore. You're something special because you're different and you're so integral to the functioning of modern society that you are now subject to additional regulatory burdens that strip you of editorial discretion, and now you have to serve all comers.
Which leads you even farther down the path that you would have to accept everything legal.
Yes.
Would have to be accepted.
Yeah. I mean, one of the things that's been argued in these appeals is, and it came up while this was getting litigated, the emergency application to the Supreme Court was pending when we had Buffalo. And there was the issue of the culprit had live streamed it and Twitch took it down. And there's a very arguable case that under the Texas social media law, it was not legal for Twitch to take it down. Mm-hmm. That's a really terrible situation we're in if platforms really have their hands tied, where some really awful content cannot be removed because there's liability associated with removing content. This is not the world we want to live in.
But again, it's very clear that neither legislature was thinking about things like that. They were thinking about Donald Trump. And these are very purpose-built, jerry-rigged, with the most ridiculous arguments, laws, that baffles me that they are getting any protection at all from the courts.
The only protection they've gotten is the Fifth Circuit.
If Apple says Leo can't come to an Apple event, there's no one to say that's. No one would reasonably say that's illegal.
Not you, Leo. It's your wardrobe.
Well, whatever. And it seems to me that's well-established precedent.
Yes.
And the fact that they're coming up with these fakatka ideas that it's a public square or it's a common carrier, it's BS. And I'm amazed that the Fifth Circuit could even, countenance that.
Well, yeah, I mean, and it's not entirely clear to what extent the Fifth Circuit, how badly it got it wrong, because it hasn't shown its work, so we don't know quite how badly it got it wrong.
Why is that? Why is that? Is that a new thing too? I mean, I guess if you have a full ruling, you write an opinion. That's the problem with the shadow docket too, isn't it? That there's no opinion.
Yeah, there's a very judicial process as we've known it it evolves over time, but it's definitely been taking some very sharp left turns. I don't mean left, right in a political sense, but just sort of like all of a sudden shifting from staid, boring, evolving slowly into all of a sudden some pretty radical changes of how things happen.
These are all originalists and constructionists doing it. That's what's hysterical.
Yeah, I mean, and
right?
originalism
So-called
is like
originalists, yeah.
I mean, and the originalism runs into a problem because they're all like, well, this is what was true in 1780. It's like, yeah, but we also had the 14th Amendment. Like, we had the Reconstruction Amendments because we had to tune things up.
They're not originalists. It's obvious. They're not constructionists. It's obvious. They just use that as cover.
No.
The judicial process itself can change without really offending the Constitution. The problem is it depends what it's changing into. And right now it's changing rather radically where they're changing the rules on the fly in a way that sort of poses the end they want to actually achieve. Like, process tends to beget substance. And so very sort of, this is just a change in how we judicially process this case, all of a sudden is having huge substantive effects. And the Fifth Circuit in particular has been very troubling in sort of how it's been handling itself. And it's then feeding into the Supreme Court, which then also has been changing the rules about how it processes cases. And all of this has been having tremendous substantive effect. And all the lawyers who like litigating these courts are kind of like throwing up their hands of like, I don't know what the rules are anymore. This is, and I will get back to it because I think it's a fair accusation, it's turning the courts into Calvin ball, and this is not a great way to have rule of law. The fact that I can train as a litigator and I'm still in the dark about what it would actually take to press a client's case, that's not an okay position to be in. Like, all the skills I have are kind of like, yeah, maybe they're useful, but it's a whole new ballgame now, and it's not supposed to be a whole new ballgame right now.
Kevin, do the Brits think we're crazy?
Every 15 minutes, we'll just ask Kevin this question.
Well, yeah, I mean, we have sort of.
You have your own. You have the Snoopers Charter.
Your worst thing going on right now is a party at number 10. That's what's tearing the country apart now.
Yes. Well, a party that happened, a year ago.
There is no First Amendment in the UK, right? Or in common law, is there? Or, I mean, it's not a. It's a U.S. concept.
Yeah, there isn't the equivalent of a First Amendment in the same way. There's a reason people sue for libel in London, because the libel laws have got a different basis here, and if you're being sued, you've got to prove you didn't say something defamatory, which is tricky.
Right.
And the defenses are different. So you can make a defense of truth, but you can't make a defense of public interest in the same way, I think.
Which is why you have such fabulous tabloids.
Although in England's credit, England had Blackstone that came up with some common law rules that actually were protective of free speech. So for instance, in America under the First Amendment, prior restraint is not supposed to happen. And we got that actually from England. That predates the United States, that Judge Blackstone had articulated that restraints on speech prior to adjudication is not something that the concept of free expression could tolerate. And we took that, and we've had other decisions that are consistent with it, which in my Supreme Court brief is a point that we made, that this order that all of a sudden lets a law challenge the free rights of free expression is all of a sudden being let loose with no real adjudication about whether it's okay or not, starts to have qualities of prior restraint to it, which really shouldn't be allowed. This is First Amendment free speech. You gotta take care of that.
Judge Blackstone.
Because you can't ring the bell once you've chilled speech.
Judge Blackstone's commentaries were published in the 18th century in the UK on British law, and presumably were read and understood by the founders. So that's why.
Yes.
Well, the other person read and understood by the founders was my hero, John Wilkes, the great troll. And if you really want to have fun, study his history. And some argue that the Bill of Rights was a great measure inspired by Wilkes and the rights he fought for. being, frankly, quite a jerk in print, but it was his right to be so.
Okay, let's take a little break.
With that,
I hope you've
Kevin?
enjoyed our little law class here. This is fun, actually. I love having Kathy on. And
later on, you'll watch me beg Leo to show you a charming moment from TikTok, but that's after a few breaks.
still to come.
There's charming moments from TikTok. That is a thing.
oh,
that
yes.
exists.
That's Jeff's favorite thing. He's a troll in his own right.
Hey.
Hey, let me
And
talk.
I've got a topic for. I'm sorry. I've got a topic for Kevin too.
Good. That's great.
That's great.
Kevin, you started as a coder, right? You were at the BBC writing code for them. Went to Apple. Worked on QuickTime there. Do you get to code at all anymore?
Yeah, no, I'm still doing some coding. I'm actually running some code for the BBC at the moment again, which is
nice.
Fun. I'm doing a bunch of freelance things at the moment.
What do you write it? What code? What language do you like to write?
Whatever I need to write it in. I mean, it's a mixture of different things. Currently I'm writing stuff in Node, PHP, Python,
JavaScript. Yeah,
JavaScript is Node. But also I've done C and Java.
When you first, do you remember the first language you learned? What was it? Was it
Basic?
Basic on the Timex or the BBC Sinclair or?
I've still got the book.
Yeah, look at that. He's right to his. Not only does he have it,
I thought you were
he's got it at his
Sinclair.
feet. He's got. Oh, look at that. For the is that the Sinclair? Is that the Sinclair's manual?
This is Illustrating Basic, which was a handwritten book about how to write programs that was published in 19.
And he went all the way back to the pre-Gutenberg manuscript era.
77. Yeah.
1977.
No, you know what's funny? I have my Kernahan and Ritchie, the C programming language from pretty much the same year, I think. Annotated in ink by me from way back when. There it is.
There we go.
You got that
Wait,
too.
do I have to go get mine?
Get your law
I got
books.
one too.
Oh, you do? Are you a coder?
I have a Kerningham and Ritchie.
You do?
Don't
Do you
you
write
just-
code?
Well, I was a web developer, so I
didn't
wrote
know
a lot
that.
of front end.
yeah.
Oh, yeah, this is what I did before I went to law school.
Oh.
This didn't. I mean, I didn't do as much.
You reasonably
coding.
figured out that the internet and the web wasn't going anywhere, so you were going to go to law school.
I was alarmed by people who didn't understand the internet or how people used it, nonetheless regulating it. So I went to law school so I could
Perfect.
help them not regulate it badly.
We need you. That's great. I'm so glad you're doing that. The reason I ask is our sponsor today. A lot of us learned Basic or C in the early days. Our sponsor today, Code Academy, if it had been around back then, might have been the way to learn. If you've wanted to learn how to program, if you've wanted to change your career, with Code Academy, you can learn to code on your own terms. And I've taken their Python courses. They're great. Over 50 million people, I'm not alone, already know that Code Academy is the best way to learn to code, because Code Academy not only teaches you job-ready coding skills, it also helps you build unique projects for your portfolio. That's very important to get that first job. You get a certificate. You could put on your LinkedIn or in your resume. You can even prep for technical interviews with Code Academy. When I just wanted to brush up my Python, I went to Code Academy for a couple of reasons. One, you're coding from day one, right away. The very first thing you do is write and submit some code. They have Python, they have JavaScript, the HTML, CSS, they have SQL. And if you go there and you say, well, I don't know, do I want to be a full stack engineer? Do I want to do front end, back end? Am I interested in computer science? Am I all about statistics? I've got a great suggestion for you. They have a programming personality quiz you can take. And it'll give you tailored career advice, not based on what you know or your mathematical ability or anything like that, but on your strengths and interests, on your personality. I took it. They said, computer science is the way to go for you. Lisa took it. It said statistics. You should learn R. You're a number. And it was absolutely right. It was absolutely right. So Code Academy can point you in the right direction, get you coding fast. You choose what you want to learn, from basic websites to artificial intelligence, everything in between. And no matter what your experience level, you'll be writing real working code in minutes. In fact, if you've never written any code, I kind of envy you. This is really the best. I cannot really recommend learning Basic first. This is the best way to get started. Not typing in code from a magazine. We were talking about that earlier today. You'll learn how to code right with an interactive platform that helps you learn by doing. You'll get a certificate of completion, which is a really handy thing to have to get that first job. Web development, programming, computer science, data science. If you want to learn a new skill, if you want to just have some fun, if you want to troubleshoot tech issues, if you want to transition into a new career, Codecademy is a great place to do it. Join over 50 million people learning to code. That's kind of amazing. What a number. At Codecademy, see where coding can take you. Get 15% off your Codecademy Pro membership when you go to codecademy.com. Use the promo code TWIG, TWIG, codecademy.com. 15% off Codecademy Pro. The best way to learn to code. Of course, you could start it for free as well. CODECADEMY.com. Promo code TWIG. Thank you, Codecademy. Actually, I'm going backwards in time, Kevin. I wish 40 years. There's the old Japanese proverb that the best time to plant a tree is 20 years ago. The next best time is today. And I feel like the best time for me to have learned Emacs and Lisp was 40 years ago. But I love it now, and that's what I put. And I figure this is a lifelong, for the rest of my life, I'll be learning Emacs because you never stop. But I love it. I almost just want to not use a GUI at all anymore. Just do it. I know it's crazy. It's nuts. But so be it. I'm a geek. What can I say?
I never quite got into the whole Emacs thing.
No, I know. You're smart not to, because it's a way of life. Yeah. It's a steep learning curve.
Well, so Kevin, VI or Emacs, which would you pick?
I'd pick VI because I can actually use that one, but I wouldn't pick it on purpose. I'd use BB Edit or
VS Code. It's very good.
VS Code.
VS Code is great.
I use VS Code of the time, but I still use BB Edit as well because it does a bunch of things well.
I love BB Edit. Actually,
it's really good at deep diffing.
You know what? Diffing is very good, and grep. I use their grep all the time if I have a large text file that I need a massage. It's really great, but I bet I could do it in Emacs if I only knew the chords.
Well, Emacs you can just actually use grep, right?
Yeah, or you can use grep. Yeah, you can use grep. There was a nasty advent of code problem last year where it was just I solved it with a massive grep problem. Smarter people did it a little bit better, but man, it was kind of fun to get deep back into grep. Grep is such a inscrutable language that you probably shouldn't ever use it, but if you can, it's fun. I
feel like the next question is, and what is your favorite shell?
I use Fish. What do you use?
I don't know. I think I was Tish or Seesh, but it's been a while.
Even Apple's
Oysters
abandoned Bash. Apple's abandoned Bash and uses Z Shell now as the default.
Yeah, I'm using Z Shell because Apple switched it on me. But
I like Z Shell. I use Z Shell for a long time, but Fish is a little. I don't know. It's a little more modern. I like the way Fish works. Nothing's modern. Fish. I think Fish's motto is something like shell programming the way it's supposed to be, like in the 80s or something. I can't remember there. It's ridiculous. All right. Enough geeking out. Back to the news. Veecon. We were talking about this before the show began. Gary Vaynerchuk, who has been on this show, is a friend of the show. He started as an early podcaster with Wine Club TV, where he would make wine recommendations because his family owned a wine store.
I go to that store to this day. That's where I get my sins met.
What's it called? Vaynerchuk's?
Wine Library.
Wine Library. That's it. So Wine Library TV was his show, and then he somehow turned himself into some sort of marketing guru.
Everybody loved him because of the show, and he did a daily show, 40 minutes a day, doing wines, which of course everybody loved. And then they kind of came to him, and he ended up showing up at all these conferences, like, look at this guy who's doing this neat thing, who understands the internet.
Yeah, so that was kind of what it was. Yeah.
It passed into, if I know that, I must know everything on earth.
Yeah.
And people would come very popular because you bring wine to the conference.
Yeah, that's true.
He would attend the conference with several cases of wine and organized tastings for you. So that made him.
To his credit, he took his notoriety as a podcaster and he created an agency that does big stuff now, big advertising agency. He created a restaurant reservation app called Resi, sold that to American Express. So he's done quite well. And of late, he has become, I'm sad to say, like so many of my friends, he's fallen down the NFT rabbit hole.
Oh, no.
I know.
Oh, big time. He is Alice in Wonderland of NFTs. Yeah.
His conference, 4 days in Minneapolis, was called Veecon, VEECon. I mean, he's now he's Veecon at the U.S. Bank Stadium. Our friend Shira Lazar was one of the moderators there. Kevin Rose, who has done very well selling NFTs. So it's really interesting. Kevin bought in early into the zombie series. These are just little cartoons you buy, and you kind of have some sort of weird digital ownership of this zombie. And he bought it early when it was one of the very first. I think it was the first NFT collection. He bought it early for $500. At last count, it was worth like $400,000. So then there was the Bored Apes Yacht Club. Similar idea. They hire. I feel bad for the artist because they hire some artist for hire, pay them a flat fee to draw 1,000 Bored Apes, and then they're worth millions. Kevin got together with Beeple, who's a well-known NFT artist, and a few other, and I think Gary was involved in this, created a group. They created owls, right? Cartoon owls. Kevin had to post a video on YouTube a couple of weeks ago saying, yeah, I know we made $50 million. Notice he mentions it in dollars, not Ethereum, not Bitcoin. $50 million, but we're going to do good things with it, I promise you. At this point,
the other thing that gets me, Leo, is they also say, like Gary says, we're going to have cartoons with this character. Like just thinking of the the funny snail character is sufficient.
Wait till you hear the Seth Green story. Wait, this is going to end with a great story.
This.
So at this conference, Veecon, Minneapolis last weekend, to educate, I'm using from the racketminnesota.com, educate, evangelize, shill, and convert people into true believers of NFTs. Spike Lee, Pharrell Williams, Kevin Smith, Mila Kunis, Eva Longoria, Seth Green, Deepak Chopra, Stephen Aoki, DJ, Logan Paul, YouTube star, Liam Payne, don't know who he is, and Snoop Dogg. 6,000 token holders from around the world came to the 73,000 seat U.S. Bank Stadium. Tickets to the event, you had to buy a VFriends token, crypto token, which gets you into 3 years of Veecons. The average token price,
if they're still around.
Average token price 7.76 ETH, which is $1,490. Is
that now about $40 or?
Well, you never know. That's the problem. So let's talk about Seth Green as a poster child.
I realize I'm going to need to say something because the camera can't pick up me rolling my eyes.
Okay, yeah, just say rolling eyes. So Seth Green bought a Bored Ape. And now that he is the owner of the Bored Ape, decided that he would like to make a Bored Ape cartoon show. Developed the show. It was going to, I think, premiere on, where was it? Some big network in a few months until his Bored Ape got stolen. His forthcoming series, White Horse Tavern, incorporates characters from the actor's extensive NFT collection, but a phishing scam got him, and the scammer stole his Bored Ape, which means he lost his license to commercially adapt the monkey.
Though one actually could debate that as to whether or not owning the NFT was, in fact,
well, here's the fear, because it was then sold on to somebody else, Bored Ape 8398, purchased from the anonymous scammer by somebody called Darkwing84 for $200,000, then transferred it to a collection called GBE Vault, which happened like that. Green has located Darkwing84 on Twitter, but has failed to make contact, according to BuzzFeed. Here's the problem. If the cartoon goes ahead, Bored Darkwing84 could sue Seth Green because technically he owns the copyright.
Well, but
wait,
Counselor, is that the case or not?
Eye rolls all around.
Eye rolls. Like, there's so much going wrong here, 'cause this is not how it works. And I know that, like, okay, obviously NFT is a technology that didn't really exist, and there's questions of how does existing law apply to it. But a lot of people who have no particular expertise in how law normally worked are throwing it around and applying it in ways that I don't think it works.
You don't believe the
thing.
Australian surgeon who goes by the name Mr. Cheese? You don't believe him?
Okay. I also didn't believe, so Seth Green had a tweet that, like, for 18 years I've been studying copyright law and the business of law and entertainment. I'm like, oh boy. I mean, I can't throw stones at all, non-lawyers. Some people actually do develop very sophisticated understanding. I look to Mike Masnick as somebody who's not a lawyer but understands it really, really well. But one of the things you understand is, like, it depends is fundamentally very often the correct answer. And if you think it actually comes out to very strongly one way or the other, that is kind of a sign that you might be wrong, because there's going to be a countervailing argument for any argument you want to make. I mean, but then again, some of them are just so specious that, yeah, they are garbage. But
okay, so I'm looking at the Bored Ape Yacht Club terms and conditions. I mean, I don't know how, I mean, it's legal. Is this legally binding? This is a contract under which you own your Bored Ape.
Does it give you a venue? Is there a choice
venue?
of law clause in that?
No, as far as I can tell.
I mean, you have a mess anyway. Like, this is a law school exam because you've got some contract, which may or may not be binding. You've got copyright. You've got state law, which tends to apply to contracts. You have federal law that preempts stuff, which tends to apply to copyright. And these parts don't even, under the best days, interact with each other very well. And now all of a sudden you have an awful lot of people with some nefarious activity, possible theft, but theft in a way that we might not actually be able to describe as theft legally because it's ephemeral and not necessarily physical, and which jurisdictions' laws are going to be doing the describing. And, like, the issue spotting is amusing. Like, me and my law friends could geek out on this and have some, lengthy conversations that are very interesting. But to pretend that there's any sort of clear path of how this would all get resolved, that's not clear, and that seems like a bad idea.
So Mr. Cheese,
tears will be shed.
The Mr. Cheese, the anonymous, Australian surgeon who owns the Bored Ape now. He's
Which
dark.
one? That particular Bored Ape? Or
Yeah.
Bored Ape or all
The
Bored
Bored
Ape?
Ape.
That Bored Ape. The Bored Ape.
It looks exactly like about four others.
Yeah, well,
Which is the other challenge
yeah.
with making a cartoon out of it.
He says, I have no
say that
plans for the ape. I have no plans for the ape, Mr. Cheese added. As you can see, I've been collecting for a while. I bought it because I liked it. It wasn't a cheap buy either, and it was not marked as suspicious, so I bought it in good faith. I'm happy to be in contact with Seth to chat about this. He spent $200,000. I think it'd be fair to give him a reasonable profit on his purchase, although he has been ignoring Seth's Twitter appeals.
On treaties.
I mean, the concept of ownership is something that everyone's just sort of relying on when it's not even clear what source of law would even define ownership, whose source of law would define ownership, and what is the effect if somebody has purchased it who was good faith. Even the United States, if you didn't know the thing was stolen, but you bought it anyway, you may not be criminally liable, but you might still have to give up the thing. But that's less true in some other countries. Like, it's not even clear whose law applies here, what law would apply here. I think this is basically just so lawless. This is just a very strange way to have some sort of really significant economic activity riding on, because most of the time economic activity is protected by just having some sort of rules of the road, and it is not entirely clear what rules of the road are guiding.
Yeah, every contract says where will you, if we come to sue each other, where in what jurisdiction will that be? And so on. The other thing that gets me about this is that, and I see there, I forget some time ago, somebody wrote a post about how this is the ownership economy, as if this is the where it all goes. I think it's the opposite. I think it's the last gasp of stupid copyright, of the metaphor of property for creativity. I think that's from Statute of Anne until today, and then I think it starts to die off into something else. I've written about credit right, about chains of creativity. There's a lot of ways we could talk about this, but this whole idea that everything gets owned, and what you own is this creativity as a thing rather than an act and a product, I think is outmoded. I don't think this is going to last.
Here is the Bored Ape in question.
Well, I can see why you'd want to fight over this.
Described as an ape in a skeleton T-shirt smoking a cigarette with a halo.
Well, that's not a cigarette, Leo.
It's a funny cigarette. Don't know. Background purple, clothes bone tee, eyes sad, fur brown, hat halo, board unshaven. Here's the whole, because it's the blockchain, we know the entire, history of the purchases and so forth. We know who owns it currently, GBE Vault, which
reported for suspicious activity.
Yeah, well, so OpenSea then, if there is something like this, and this was not on it when he bought it, but OpenSea, once they heard about all this, has then disabled purchase and selling of it, and has this thing on it, which, as you know, now makes it all on the up and up. So anyway. Honestly,
it's hilarious.
It's hilarious. I feel bad.
This is
for
a
no
dumb
one.
way of doing creativity. It's a dumb way to do economics, and it's a dumb way of doing creativity. This doesn't vindicate. This actually makes copyright look good, and I resent that.
Yeah. You got it, Kathy. You're right. Yeah.
This makes copyright look good. Here, though, again, thanks to the blockchain, we know exactly who owns it. We know exactly who transferred it. We know what they paid. All of this is public.
We know what dumb name they use.
You see, Steve Aoki had it. He sold it to Seth Green. Seth Green then it was stolen from Seth. This is notice the red exclamation mark. This account may be compromised to CAAO90, who then sold it to Darkwing immediately, by the way. And Darkwing immediately transferred it into the GBE vault. And that's where it sits.
That's Dr. Cheese?
That's Dr. Cheese. By the way, Chi is not like some new age CHI energy coming up your spine. It's cheese. It's fromage. It's a nice piece of Munster. So
I'll be disappointed if somebody doesn't write a book about this and call it the Apes of Wrath.
Apes of Wrath. Oh. So how much is 106 ETH? I guess it's $200,000 at some point. I guess at the point of sale. And then don't forget the gas fees, which also have to be added on. But look here, 41. Maybe you should have bought 41.75. I could buy it now for 150 ETH. You know what's sad is somebody drew this. They're getting no money for it. They got paid, $50 an ape or whatever, and that's that. It's just so stupid. So we have hit the.
I mean, there's Brian Fraser has sort of looked into some of the artistic merits of this NFT thing, and he's written some very interesting defenses of how this might actually further artistic creativity and funding and sort of actually put copyright law to shame as it deserves regularly. And I can accept a lot of the arguments that he has, but that's not what's happening. That's not what's getting vindicated. This is a weird gold rush mentality, rent-seeking, pyramid schemes, grift. This isn't vindicating anything of value. And it's just neither an economic nor a legal construct that solves an existing problem. It just seems to create a whole bunch of new ones. So I'm never a fan of that.
No, my attitude is if you want to support artists, give them some money. You don't have to do this whole BS thing. Hey, by the way, this is going to be interesting. This just in from the San Francisco Chronicle. Right after the horrific events in Uvalde, Texas yesterday, the California Senate passed a gun control bill modeled on the Texas abortion law. So now,
which Mike Masnick already said not a good idea.
Private citizens can file suit.
That's not a way to do policy, as Mike said.
No, it's terrible. No. It's bad in Texas. It's bad in California. But, it's kind of hard to resist, right?
Well, the only thing, so since I have no control over this and it's on its own trajectory. This helps illustrate the tremendous damage that the shadow docket on SB8 had, because it puts states in a position where they can do this sort of thing, which isn't the way our federal union was supposed to work. And that one thing of like, yeah, go ahead, let SB8 go ahead, no problems here. This is exactly the sort of problem it tempted. And in a way, as a single example, I don't necessarily mind it as something hopefully salient enough that can nip this trend in a bud, because otherwise I think we have fundamental problems about how we're going to stay together as a country, because this really is so corrosive on the bonds that hold the states together.
Yes. I presume this will immediately be, I mean, it's obviously unconstitutional, just as the Texas law is. Oh, but wait.
there you go.
Never mind. Let's.
However, if I can jump in with other stupid that's come from the California legislature, or that's working its way through the California legislature, like we've already spurned the red states and their stupid ideas of how they want to regulate the internet, but California's got some too. They're floating a bill about creating a private right of action against platforms for something alleged to be called like that kids get addicted to social media, which is a highly, highly specious thing not supported by social science. So it's questionable that there's actually a legitimate problem to solve. And the way that there is a pending bill to solve it is rather game over for a lot of platforms, because it would really just sort of just open them up to unending litigation from everybody who has really just no particular claim at all, but can float a lawsuit to go try to extract settlement money from it. This has gotten through the legislature, but it's now at the Senate. And I wanted to highlight that because the Senate really needs to put the brakes on this. This is not something that's good. And it's just because but think of the children attached to it. Nobody's putting the appropriate thought into what the full implications of this policy proposal are.
This is AB 24-8.
Care.
The Social Media Platform Duty to Children Act, introduced by Democrat Buffy Wicks of Oakland, with Republican Jordan Cunningham of Paso Robles, and support, believe it or not, from the UC San Diego School of Law Children's Advocacy Institute. And it allows...
And it's a tricky one to fight. This isn't something that children have... The social science does not support the claim that there's a problem, or that this would be the solution to any problem that there might actually be. This is kind of the moral panics that come up every so often, that the rock lyrics are too violent, the video games are too violent. It's as untethered to social science as any of those things.
Snap. Oh, snap.
Some more good news.
Oh, snap. Snap sends Shiver through ad stocks. We're talking about Snapchat.
You send a singular Shiver?
A single Shiver has been sent. This is Martin Pierce writing in the information.
It's like a single ETH.
It's one Shiver.
It's a new filter.
One single Shiver. Snap stock down, it says 30%. I think it was even more than that initially.
It was 40.
Yeah, it was almost half of its value gone because it said, oh, yeah, ads are second quarter revenue and profits will be below what we projected a few weeks ago, thanks to a faster than expected deterioration in macroeconomic conditions. Nobody's buying ads.
They allude to supply chain problems, and a friend of mine tweeted, like, what's the breakdown in a supply chain?
Well,
more eyeballs?
No,
like, what is it that they...
I can address that.
Stupid glasses.
We see the same thing, which is companies are reluctant to buy ads if they can't sell products that are being advertised. And so if there's a supply chain problem, it's a follow-on effect from supply chain.
Oh, okay. Well, their message was not clear that they were having ancillary effects to other people's supply chain problems. The way they articulated it sounded like they had a supply chain.
There is no lack of ads on Snap. If you need one, we've got a glut, apparently. Okay. So, yeah. I don't, I pay attention to this stuff. When I see something like that, it sends a shiver down my spine because, of course, we also sell ads. But we haven't seen the same drop-off.
Knock wood, Leo.
Knock on Would, but that's why we have Club Twit, to kind of smooth out the shiver. In fact, why don't I do an ad right now? We got a great panel. Kathy Gellis is with us. She writes at Tech Dirt, also has a law practice at cgcounsel.com, COUNCEL, like a counselor, and is at Kathy Gellis on Twitter, Kathy with a C. It's great to have you, Kathy. Thank you you even got a new microphone just for the show, so thank you.
Just for the show.
I appreciate it. Also, great to have Kevin Marks. Nope. There. Kevin.
I thought I was going to get an accent there for a minute.
I threw John. I knew I would. Great to have Kevin Marks. IndieWeb.org is the site he likes to promote because we all want an independent web, and we all want to support web standards. It's really been interesting, Kevin, to watch Mastodon take off after all of this Twitter upset. Our Twit social has gone, through the roof as Mastodon social and the other Mastodon instances.
Yeah. We've seen quite a flow again. Yeah.
Really glad to see that. I'm a big fan, as I am of independent web standards and IndieWeb.org. So great to have you. And of course, last and least, Jeff Jarvis. It's just I like to tease you. I love you, Jeff. Of course, couldn't do the show without you. He's the guy who shows up, so I got to give you credit.
Exactly.
Yep. Ant's got the day off. Stacy's got the day off, but Jeff.
Nope, can't get rid of me.
Can't get rid of him.
Petty, here I am.
No, we love having you on.
You're stuck with him insulting your shirt no matter what.
It's a white shirt. I'm wearing, actually, it's a bit of history. This is a ZD Television shirt, which goes back to the early 90s when Ziff Davis, who is no longer, but was at one time a well-known publisher of magazines, especially computer magazines, PC Magazine, Computer Shopper, and the like, said we should be in television. And they gave me a polo shirt and said, "You're in it. You're in. You're on right now. Go." Polo shirt that, by the way, you cannot wear on TV. Oddly enough, but they were new to it. They didn't know. It's too bright. Our show today, hey, let me tell you, I'm feeling good today. I am feeling really good today, and I can credit it to my 8 sleep. In fact, even this morning, Lisa said, "Wow, you were out last night. Went to bed early, stayed in bed till 8:30. I said, "Yep." It was just too comfortable to leave. 8 Sleep makes something we have on our mattress called the Pod Pro cover that has really transformed the quality of my sleep. 30% of Americans struggle with sleep. And one of the main reasons is temperature. Too hot, too cold. Good sleep is so important for health, so important for state of mind, your heart, your blood pressure. Even good sleep can even reduce the risk of Alzheimer's. Why are we having such trouble sleeping? Well, I think especially, in the summertime, it's too hot. Wintertime, it's too cold. 8 Sleep is an amazing cover that checks your biometrics while you're sleeping and the temperature of the room, and then adjusts the temperature of the bed. And man, when I say adjust, it can adjust it as low as 55 degrees or as hot as 110. That's pretty warm and that's pretty cold. What's nice, and it doesn't swing that much most of the time. What I do is I set it to be a little toasty when I get in bed. It cools off at night, which helps me get into that deep sleep cycle. Your body really wants it to be cool for that. And then to wake me up, instead of an alarm clock, I just have it go up a little bit, and I'm toasty, and I wake up, and I go, ready for the day. 8 Sleep users fall asleep 32% faster and reduce sleep interruptions by 40%. And overall get a more restful sleep. And they know that because they've got the biometrics to prove it. Good sleep is the ultimate game changer, nature's gentle nurse. And I love my pod cover. You got to get it, the Pod Pro cover from 8 Sleep. Here's what you're going to do. You're going to go to 8sleep.com/twig right now, EIGHT, 8sleep.com/twig. And because it's Memorial Day, wow. It looks like I don't think I can say the amount, but just go. There's exclusive savings through June 6th for Memorial Day. Shipping in the U.S., Canada, and the U.K. Now, if you're hearing this after June 6th, the reason I don't want to say the numbers is because I don't want you to be jealous, but you can still get $150 out at checkout by going to 8sleep.com/twig. But go to 8sleep.com/twig now or later and get a great amount of savings. You will want this. I'm telling you. Yes, it has 2 sides of the bed, So Lisa, in fact, Lisa, see, there's an automatic kind of sleep doctor thing, and she turned it off and she said, "No, I'm going to do it." And she said it too cool last night, and she woke up and she said, "I was freezing." So she did not have a good night's sleep. Let the 8 sleep choose. Don't override it. But you do have different sides. It didn't bother me at all. You have two different people, each side of the bed based on your sleep stages, your biometrics, and the bedroom temperature. 8sleep.com/twig to check out the Pod Pro cover and save $150 at checkout. 8sleep.com/twig. Thank you so much for supporting This Week in Google. The holes, yeah, people are saying you have holes. Probably.
Moths?
I mean, it's pretty old.
Yeah.
No, I don't think it's moths. I think it's the mic clips kind of poked it in there. I don't know. Somebody says the mic clips. You're right, it does have holes. But I still wanted to wear it just as, a bit of memorabilia. And then I'm going to send it to Christina Warren, who collects failed companies' T-shirts.
Yes.
All right, let's move along. Big tech is getting clobbered on Wall Street, and the New York Times is on it. The New York Times says it's good for them. Oh, I'm sorry, it's a good time for them. What? Flush with cash, Facebook, Apple, Amazon, Microsoft, and Google are positioned to emerge from a downturn stronger and more powerful. Trip Mickle writing this for the New York Times. He's, of course, the guy who wrote After Steve. I interviewed him a couple of weeks ago about that book. He said they've lost $2.7 trillion in value.
My FU money is saying FU, Jarvis.
Yeah, me too. Now, I didn't invest directly in these companies. I invested in the S&P 500, which I have since learned is heavily invested in Apple, Amazon, Microsoft, Facebook, and Google. So they lost what would be the equivalent of the annual gross domestic product of Britain this year. Since January. But
Britain's lost about 10% of that as well. But
yeah, that's right. Yeah. But Tripp says it's a good thing. He says, and he's quoting actually analysts who say, large companies drops in prices 58% for Peloton, Uber down 45%. Job cuts, layoffs, but a little belt tightening is good. During the Great Recession, Facebook, Amazon, Google, Apple, and Microsoft acquired more than 100 companies because they were cheap.
But now they're not going to be allowed to buy companies because of antitrust.
Oh.
Aha.
I guess that's the total upshot of it, right? They can buy stuff now, I guess. It's cheap. Anyway, let's see what else. Jack Dorsey has now officially left the building. You knew that when
he's not alone.
Oh. Others have stepped down?
Look at the next line. Very interesting.
Twitter shareholders vote to kick Silver Lake off the board. And what's interesting is Egon Durbin, who is now resigning from the board, is a longtime Musk backer, a business associate who supported Musk's acquisition of Twitter. So the shareholders, that's an interesting signal from the shareholders. They have to approve any deal from Musk. Why are they kicking Silver Lake off?
The shareholders don't like Musk.
You think it really is a vote against Musk?
That's what my thought is. I don't know.
Was it shareholders meeting today? Is that why all this has happened?
Yeah. Yep. Yeah. So Durbin through Silver Lake poured $100 million into Solar City before it was acquired by Tesla. When Musk, remember, famously said that Tesla is going to go private, he was working with Silver Lake as a financial advisor. Both men serve on a board of an entertainment company called Endeavor, Ari Emanuel's company. So, yeah, maybe this is a little
subtweet
signal. Yeah, a little subtweet from the shareholders we don't like this deal. Although, what is Twitter's stock at? I mean, at this point, you're getting a hell of a deal. Elon offered $54.20. The stock is at $37.16.
Some things are more important than stock, like the democracy. But it's back up because Musk is getting more money.
Oh, yeah. I think some of this was a vote that Musk would not get. His bid would not be supported, and so they weren't going to get the $54.20. In other words, the stock market didn't believe it. But now, and there has been a little bump today. Musk says he's got to get 44 million total. He's got 33.5 million. He should put, you know what he should do is put a little thermometer on the lawn at Tesla that just shows how close he is to raising.
And next to it is the stock price.
This seems odd because he's very extended in terms of his Tesla stock, and the Tesla stock is dropping. So his ability to convert what he owns in Tesla seems, I don't know. It doesn't seem like it makes sense to follow each little jump, because I don't think we know enough to know how this is happening. But I feel like I've seen more stuff to suggest that this is going to fall apart than I've seen stuff to say that everything is fine and the deal is going to be consummated the way it was articulated originally.
Are you sad, Jeff? Because I know you really think Twitter is all that, and obviously this is not good for Twitter, whatever happens. And if Musk gets a hold of it, it'd probably even be worse. Are you sad? Is that a loss?
Yeah, it really is. But I think I go back to Jack's tweet a few weeks ago where he said that centralizing discovery and identity in corporations was wrong. And I think that's what we're seeing here. And in fact, and so I'm trying to reach out to Blue Sky because I remain fascinated in that. And there's two other interesting things. This is my stories for Kevin discussion too. Adam Mosseri from the head of Instagram did a TED talk, and normally I don't quote TED talks, but in which he was arguing, and it's a fairly obvious thing, but he was arguing that blockchain will enable creators on any platform to have a direct relationship. This is what he's advocating: direct relationship with their fans, their subscribers, their purchasers, their call them what you will, their people. And so what he's talking about there is a shift to protocol. What Blue Sky is a shift from company to protocol. Even OpenSea, which was criticized for still being a centralized point in the supposedly distributed world of NFTs, is distributing now, talking about a protocol. And so I wonder whether we are potentially entering a new phase of the net where Twitter may be a sacrificial lamb to the ills of centralized ownership, and showing us why we really don't want that, and we really want to return to a world of HTTPS and email protocols and so on and so forth, where we have a more open world. Now, I'm sure Kevin can poke holes in that little bit of optimism of mine, but I'm hoping that this is what we see coming. So yes, I'm very sad about Twitter. I think it's part of the public conversation. It's a place where I have tons of friends, get tons of information. I spend a lot of time and I enjoy it. And I fear maybe it's not going to go down. And Andre Brock, the great author of Distributed Blackness, has said we're going to stay and we're going to fight, and other people are too. And maybe we can still do that, but it just feels like we got cooties even being around Musk.
Okay, there's a couple of things there. So, yes, protocols are a great thing. I'm a big fan of protocols. I advocate for those. But there's a pernicious thing now which is been pushed by A16Z and a bunch of other people, where they're saying we're going to make new protocols and there's going to be money in them and that's going to be better. And actually that's going to make them worse. We spent a long time getting money out of protocols. The patents that were blocking us actually doing interop in audio and video for 20 years. But we basically had to wait for them to expire before we could do interop again, because the thickets were so thick in that rules. And we spent a long time actually reconstructing the sort of social order of technology so that we work on an open source basis, on an open protocol basis now most of the time. And they're trying to turn the clock back to the kind of patent pool nonsense that dogged us in the 90s. So I think that's the antithesis of what you want when you're trying to.
How does explain to me a little more, Kevin, if you would, the money in protocol, money out of protocol. What is that?
So this is the Chris Dixon Web3 thesis. So Chris Dixon is going around saying Web3, which is not the web. The web doesn't have version numbers, but he's saying we're going to have this great idea where you have a protocol and it's lucrative to create protocols because you will get paid every time someone uses your protocol.
We should mention that
there'll be a huge market for protocols.
Is a venture capitalist at Andreessen Horowitz, and they are in fact the owners, in effect, of Web3. Go ahead.
Yes, yeah. No, it was Web3 was made up by Gavin, what's his face, but in 2014. But yeah, Chris Dixon has been hyping it strongly, but his supposed investment thesis is we can create protocols that flow value by attaching tokens to protocols, which means they don't end up interoperating at all. You end up having a bunch of protocols that have each got separate tokens, and then he can sort of pump and dump those and push them out to Coinbase and then make another one. So it's a non-starter. It's not a good way to do protocols. The way you do protocols is very hard and complicated, where you actually sit down and have to agree with people how to do things. And
this is the opposite. This is the opposite. I don't have to agree with you. I'll just make a token and do what I want.
Yeah. So it's having spent a large chunk of my time doing protocol stuff, it's not about we have a brilliant idea and we've written it down, everyone will adopt it. People seem to think that it's like, basically, I've said this before, protocols are not legislation. Protocols are documentation. They say, yes. Here's how to do things. If you want to work on if you want to move data between these two things, here's how you do it, and here's the rules. The trouble is we write it like legislation. So if you actually read them, they say you must do this and you shall do that and you may do the other, and because it's written in that form. And so after people have done that a bit, they think, oh, so if I can change the protocol, then everyone will then change the world, and that will do things. And that's when your standards body gets bogged down in politics and you have to throw it away and start a new standards body.
What do you think about Blue Sky in that context?
Blue Sky, I like some of the people involved. I talked to them, but they seem to they've been valuing originality over utility. They're saying we want to do something new and different, and we said, well, here's how you do it with existing protocols. Look, we've been doing it for 10 years, and they go, oh, but that's not new enough. It's like, yes, that's the point. The point is that we know how to do interop, Twitter-like interop with existing protocols. That's exactly what IndieWeb is about. We've built 6 or 7 different protocols. We've simplified some existing ones. We've got them through W3C. We've done a whole bunch of work on this. We're getting people to adopt them and so on. But they're saying, well, we really don't want to use DNS. We don't want to use DNS and URL, so we're going to make up some new signature thing that's based on cryptography. Which, you can sort of argue for that, but actually it's really annoying. You end up with things that aren't names. You end up with things that are like long strings of hex digits, which is one of the sort of nightmares of all the NFTs and Bitcoinery. Is you've got 2 magic long hex strings, and you're supposed to give someone one and not the other. And if you give them the other one, then they take your apes. We have a way to do distributed namespaces across the internet. It's called DNS. It works very well. There was a time where we had to put some political structure in place to deal with it, which is ICANN. We have that now. And making new ones is not actually enormously helpful. Twitter got away with inventing a new namespace, but basically their namespace is put twitter.com before this, and then you've got the name. And they've hit the problem that they're running out of them now, so all the new names have got 6 digits after them as well. So but
they dress very nicely, all of those people. Yes.
Yeah, but you remember, Jeff? We link to each other on blogs. It isn't actually hard to link to someone's blog.
No.
Or even their post, but you can link to their name, you can link to the blog, and that works. And we've got protocols now that when I link to your blog, my blog can tell you I've linked to it, and you can take what I've done and add it onto the end. We know how to do that. We're working with different groups to adopt more of it, but it's the challenge is not the protocols. The challenge is people trying not to interoperate. I had this is exactly the problem I had with Open Social 14 years ago, whatever it was, where we did the work to get things to interoperate, and then everyone said, actually, we'd rather not interoperate. We want to own everything. Facebook did it first, and then Google said, yeah, no, we want to do that too, which is why it didn't work there afterwards. and now nobody owns anything.
Well, so you agree with Chris's second point, which is that the current web is basically run by corporations and the value.
No, I don't agree with that at all. No? I think the web is fine. I think the structure of corporations is a problem, but the way you don't fix that by more financialization and nonsense.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. We already have systems that are democratized that work perfectly well.
You fix it by finding a group of people who actually want to interoperate again and working with them and talking to them. And it's
IndieWeb.org. So that system you talked about is web mention, right?
Yes. So that's one of the pieces of it, yeah. But the specific one of to build a sort of distributed Twitter-like at reply thing is web mention. So if Jeff writes a post and I reply to it, I can web mention him and it can appear under his post if he has web mention supporting software. And vice versa, he can reply to me, and we've got the infrastructure for doing that.
How do we get people to use this?
You get them to use something that supports it. Micro.blog supports it. We're working on getting other people to support it. We're having an interesting conversation with Tumblr this week, where we're trying to get Tumblr to support IndieWeb stuff, and we're getting strong support from Matt Mullenweg and the COO of Tumblr to do some work.
Matt's fantastic. I have to say, there's a guy who's a champion of open.
Matt's great, and if we can get it on Tumblr, great, and then we can maybe get it on WordPress too, and then we've got like half the web. Yeah, literally.
Matt Mullenweg is the creator of WordPress.
So I think the deeper problem with Twitter,
Tumblr, as well as
you've definitely set me off here.
Good, but keep going.
The problem with Twitter is exactly the problem you said. It's like it's the place where your news buddies are, which is why it's great. And it's why I like it. There's a bunch of other parallel Twitters that go on, but the global journalist Twitter is an important part of Twitter. And the challenge is the same challenge that we had with Google Reader and with Facebook's news products. Is the problem is news and ad businesses don't really go very well together, especially automated ad businesses, because running ads against news is a tricky business at the best of times, but also people don't want the classic thing of you don't want plane ticket adverts next to plane crashes, but the machine will provide that for you if you're not very careful. So it sort of gets naturally rejected by these ad-supported businesses. So the reason Reader didn't last was they're like, well, there's Google was like, there aren't enough people using it. It's like the people who are using it like 1,600 times a day, and they're the people who actually want to use it because they're the ones who are writing about your products, but they didn't quite get that. And it's not quite a literal conversation; it's fairly close to a conversation. And Twitter has the same problem. It's like the journalists love it and they like the attraction of that part of it, but in terms of ads, that isn't where they're making the money in the ads. And Technorati was that too. We had that same problem. Is we built that tool for that was primarily for journalists and news, and we had the continuous problem of like, how do we make money from this? Because that doesn't correlate well with advertising.
It was a wonderful tool. Oh, it was great.
I miss Technorati. I really do. Yeah.
But we can build a distributed Technorati with this stuff if we want to. Yeah. Or we can build a centralized one if we really want to again. But I'm not sure I want to take that on again. But the other half is you spend a lot of time dealing with spam. But anyway, so
that's a problem everywhere, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. There's the sort of the problem of, do we have interoperating protocols? Yes, we do. We've got plenty of interoperating protocols, and we've got layers of them, and we've got choices at lots of the different layers. We can do this stuff, but it takes some will to actually want to interoperate. And then the other problem is there is a tension between ad-supported and news, and it's not something that's trivially solvable. And it's a problem for news sites as well. The corollary of that is that the news that's good and has had time spent on it is now behind paywalls, and the propaganda isn't. And that's the other thing that eats away at it as well.
Exactly.
So yeah, there's a sort of
one thing that gets back to.
Sorry, Kathy.
Oh, well, so one thing that gets back to the 11th Circuit and the First Amendment and the Florida social media law is stuff having to do with, we talked a little bit about like, well, if why is the rule different that the bar could kick out the person that they didn't want to serve, but not the platform? And the argument being thrown into that is that these platforms are so integral to how society, you need to be there because everybody else is there. So if you want to have your life function, you better be on Facebook, which I think is a specious notion, but they're obviously big and have very heavy presences. And so that's been the argument for their ability to parse out who they let on their platforms or not. But the thing is, you could in theory get another. You could get another Facebook. You can get a www.notfacebook.com. You can get a www.nottwitter.com. That in theory, you can get an infinite number of other platforms to either facilitate messages or, if you want, roll your own, so you can have your own website and you can put out your own message. And the more that we rely on protocols instead of the companies, then when you put your message up so it's on the web in a certain way, other people will be able to interact with it, and we don't need the proprietary methods to be able to do that. But then to back up, the concern that I have a little bit is, what are the obstacles to being able to roll your own, have your own web server, have your own mail server, have your own, an email server? What are the regulatory obstacles? So, for instance, we better keep Section 230 because that keeps the regulatory obstacles at a minimum. But then we have privacy regulations sprouting up all over the place. So, if you want to start your own fan forum, for instance, it's a much harder decision to make, a more expensive decision to make than it used to be, but it's still makeable. And then what are the practical considerations? It's going to need some technical support. It's going to be some maintenance. Now, cybersecurity is a big thing. So how do we support it so that people can functionally provide their own independent outlets, and then the protocols can make sure that we get the functionality and interconnectivity between the internet outlets? As a lawyer, I want to care about, do we have the regulatory space that is making it so we can get another Facebook, or we can even just get your own platform where you put out your own message that other people can interact with, and you don't even need another platform necessarily, and certainly not run by a corporation. So from my perspective, eye on the ball of what does it take to diminish the barriers so that we don't need to use these companies, because we can get what we need. There's something we get from them, but we could probably get all those benefits in another way that does not require giving, up our privacy and this, then the other thing in order to have accounts on Facebook. There's other ways that we can speak to each other online. We were doing that before Facebook. Let's figure out if we can do that after Facebook as well.
Yeah. And they do still exist.
Regulation.
Yeah. But
regulation is certainly a factor.
But WordPress does still exist. WordPress is still a very large proportion of the web. Blogger still exists. You can go and use that, and Tumblr too. There's a whole bunch of places you can go and publish your stuff online and talk about things, and the many Mastodon instances and so on as well. It's more that the challenge is the group of people I want to talk to there, and then you have to do the work to cross post things, to publish on one place and then share it somewhere else, to feed stuff back. And again, we've got tools to help do that and things to make that a little easier, but it still works and still takes some setting up. And then the other half of that is you don't necessarily want to connect them all together. You don't necessarily want every Twitter reply to show up on your blog post. That could be annoying too, because the way Twitter replies have with both thundering herd problems and pile-ons and things, you don't necessarily want them all turning up on your own site. You want to keep that cleaner. So there's some tensions. There's always some tensions between my post has taken off. Oh great! Oh, my post has taken off. Now I've got to go and move house. There's which is a real problem.
Let's see.
You want a happy TikTok moment?
No, but okay, I'll do it. Yes, a happy TikTok moment.
You deflate
Crypto Boy
me so much.
Yeah, which one of the list?
Well, there's just two moments. So
Okay.
Anna Lapwood, who I've talked about before, is a young woman who is at Cambridge. She heads the organ at one of the colleges there. She directs a chorus, and she goes, and she's a staff, kind of a staff organist at Royal Albert Hall. So she goes in, and she has to go in the middle of the night to practice, and she's there. And you play this one.
I don't know why it's. Oh, there
Every
it
now
is.
and then you.
Yeah.
Oh shit.
How come I can't play it? There we go.
Every now and again, you play a concert, feels genuinely life. Oh, I'm sorry, that was the wrong one. All right, so keep going. This was a concert for Bonobo. Did I say that right?
Yes.
They heard her. She was playing a couple hours' notice, and they heard her. They said, "Ooh, we have to have you." They wrote a part for her, and she did a 5-day engagement with them, wowing the audience when this organ just.
People didn't know there was an organ in Royal Albert Hall.
Well, it's there, but they didn't know everybody's going to play it.
It's pretty obvious. It's
you can't miss it?
Right there.
Okay.
You can't miss it, yeah. But it was kind of a wonderful moment, and I think she's the greatest. She's a young woman who's in the all best senses, our sense of the word, a nerd. She's a pipe organ nerd, but she just has this enthusiasm about it that's infectious. So I thought it was a nice, happy moment. That's one. The other one is Ukrainian soldiers singing a tribute to their drones.
They love their drones, and here they are singing a tribute. With full orchestra, apparently.
Yeah.
Invaders have come to Mother Ukraine with new ammunition, but all the nice gear is now burning like tar. Bayraktar, which is the Turkish drone that they love. Russians have parked their tanks in the bushes to munch on kielbasa they stole from Babushka before they could say Suka Blayat. They're hit hard by Bayraktar. I don't know if we should be really celebrating this, but I kind of understand their joy. They're dragging us back to their evil empire. Bad move on their part. We won't let them bring back the USSR. Bayraktar. Why is Viktor Orban selling Bayraktar to the Ukrainians? Is my question.
Part of NATO, I mean.
Yeah.
Is it? I thought it was.
I feel like Turkey is kind of, I don't know, on the fence.
No, are they yet? No.
Wait,
That's
Orban or Erdogan?
Erdogan.
Yeah, Erdogan. No, about it.
Yeah, Erdogan.
Okay, that's what confused me. Okay, right. Well, good market.
I confuse Hungary and Turkey. Sorry. Yeah. Yeah. This is hysterical. Okay, thank you, TikTok. I guess I could play that. The Ukrainian army is not going to come after me with a strike on YouTube.
They might come out after you with a drone, but not with a takedown order.
Yeah, they do strikes in a different way.
Different kind of. It's a different kind of copyright strike.
I think the Ukrainian government is very happy to have their content shared at the moment. They've been playing a blinder with this stuff.
Yeah.
They're wonderful young guy who's their head of digital transition left Kyiv and went to Davos and scolded companies like SAS to get the heck out of Russia. And say you companies are not doing enough, which I like seeing when they go to Davos, especially since I'm not invited to.
You didn't get to go. I'm sorry.
No,
Owen Thomas Protocol will join us on Sunday to give us the Davos report, which we used to have from Jeff.
Yeah. No,
sorry. This was actually, I thought, kind of an upbeat story. Let me see if I can find it. They have created, students at the researchers at the University of Texas at Austin have created a gel film that can pull gallons of drinking water per day from the air, even the very dry desert air. It's cheap to make. It's basically cellulose with a common food additive, couple of bucks to make per kilogram. And at 30% humidity, it can produce 3.4 gallons of water per day per kilogram of gel. Even at the very low desert humidity of 15%, it can produce 1.6 gallons of fresh water a day per kilogram. So the gel absorbs the moisture from the air, and then if it's heated mildly, releases it.
I thought it was a great story.
Isn't that amazing? It's cellulose and konjac gum, which is widely used in food additives. So it is, I don't know. I just thought, I saw that. I thought, nice story. Please don't use the DuckDuckGo browser because they made a deal with Microsoft to.
Nobody's perfect
to allow Microsoft trackers on third-party sites. DuckDuckGo, I guess, uses Bing. DuckDuckGo does not store any personal identifiers with their search queries, but Microsoft Advertising may track your IP address and other information for accounting purposes.
Yeah.
Like we're going to make money accounting purposes. Anyway, the DuckDuckGo guy said it's not the search, it's just the browser. He posted on Reddit doing a little reclamation.
Let me put a shout. Well, I realized we were trying to go upbeat, and now I'm about to talk about the dystopia. But the degree to which tracking intimate medical details
big problem.
is so easy.
Yeah.
It was kind of something I was like, I'm aware of this, and I kind of thought, okay, but that's not a problem that would affect me. And then a phone call I made seemed to have been reflected in an ad I saw on my Twitter app, and that just the tether.
Did you see the FTC, Kathy?
I see a variety of things. That they use, I think TechDirt said they're just politely asking not to track kids, but
no, they're using F2A phone data to sell to advertisers.
Oh, Twitter, yeah,
$150 million.
Twitter got a big fine. But this was probably not related to a phone call you made, Kathy. Twitter is going to pay $150 million because just like Facebook a couple of years ago, remember they get your number so they can send you a two-factor code, but they've been using it to target ads.
But that's the phone number.
Yeah, but I don't think Kathy's phone call. Well, maybe.
So I was trying to figure out what the vector was. And I'm actually less upset by Twitter at this because Twitter is sort of like, what's some data that's be usable for us to give us ads? And if that was the extent of my relationship where I wouldn't have been as bothered, but Twitter didn't know about the phone call that I made. And yet somehow it had information about me that suggested I had made this phone call. So I'm more worried about who scooped up information about my phone call to then pass it on to somebody for whom that information would be useful. I'm more worried about the initial scooping up and trying to figure out what the vector was. And the only thing I can think about is it was the phone call. But this is why people think like Facebook is listening to you, because there's certain things where it's like the topic you were interacting with was so esoteric, and yet somehow there's a very direct correlation to something you
could not have been a coincidence
later, like in an ad.
You're sure it's not a coincidence?
It doesn't feel like it was a coincidence.
Yeah. Because I hear all the time.
I almost tuned it out, and then I realized, no, this is not normal.
Yeah, I hear this all the time. My Alexa or my Google Assistant was listening in, or Instagram was listening, and it's giving me ads based on something I said. And I can't say for sure it's not, but there's a lot of anecdotal.
Let me take back that it was Twitter. Yeah, because it wasn't just Twitter. It was, I was watching Tubi on Roku, and I got an ad, and a part of me is like, oh, this is the normal ad I would have seen at this. And then I'm like, hang on a second. These are not ads that everybody else sees. These are ads that are somehow being tailored to me. And it thought I would want to see this ad. And the only reason I could think of why it thought I might want to see that ad was because of this phone call I had made. So I was trying to figure out what the vector was of why did it think that was appropriate and something that I would want? Because it was the type of thing that in this day and age would be very, very, very concerning for people to be able to have that insight into what might be going on in my life.
Right. DOJ says it's not going to prosecute white hat security researchers, which will relieve, I think, quite a few security researchers who have been very nervous about the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act, which has been used to harass many people, including, of course, the late Aaron Swartz. We'll see. I'd still be nervous. We'll see. The department's goals for CFAA enforcement are to promote privacy and cybersecurity by upholding the legal right of individuals, network owners, and operators to ensure their confidentiality. The EFF has, of course, lobbied to let white hackers, do their job. We need that, but it's always been risky, and there are many stories of white hats being at least investigated under the CFAA. So let's see. Let's hope. Here's another happy story. Electrify America, which is the big charging network that VW is installing across the United States after their Dieselgate, this is part of their reparations, will be 100% solar powered by 2023.
That's good.
Yeah. Already it's 100% renewable electricity as of April. So when you get your electric car and you drive by the gas station charging $7 a gallon and you go down to Electrify America, know that the sun is powering.
Where do you charge yours?
At home. And this is, a lot of electric car people or prospective buyers of electric vehicles worry about this because with a gas vehicle, you can't fill it up at home. So they're always worried, well, where am I going to charge it? The truth is most of us never drive more than, 50 or 60 miles a day. And most cars have 100 or 200 or 300. Mine has 250 miles per charge. I charge it every night at home using solar power from our solar panels. And
were you to drive longer distance?
Then you would use Electrify America or something similar. I've used Electrify America.
Can you use Teslas?
No, well, not as of now. Someday, Tesla says maybe. And in the UK, I think there's one Tesla supercharger you can use in the whole country. but they're Electrify America, this is the good news about Dieselgate. They're going to be all over the country. They're putting in thousands of them. So, and they're fast chargers. They're good fast chargers. But again,
you got
go ahead.
A big Powerwall thing as well, then?
I do. I have 2 power walls.
Yeah, okay.
60 panels.
You said you were charging from solar power at night. I was like, that's a good trick.
It's a good trick. And honestly, it's technically probably not, because we sell it back to the utility company, et cetera, et cetera. But
yeah,
we're generating more electricity than we use.
Which is good, yeah.
Yeah. If you're worried about it, if you want to buy an electric vehicle, buy one. What's the price of petrol per liter in the UK these days?
I don't know. I haven't.
You have an electric vehicle also, obviously.
I have an electric bicycle.
Yeah, I love my electric bicycles. If we could just get rid of all the cars, I'd be happy to ride my electric bicycle everywhere. But I'm terrified of getting creamed.
Yeah, so I'm out of step with. I'm out of step with everyone because I have a petroleum-powered car and a non-electrified bicycle.
Well, that's okay. It's better to pedal.
Muscle, yeah.
Muscle power is always better, yeah.
Are you South Bay? I mean, it's not flat down there.
No, I'm North Bay. The biking is good here, or relatively speaking.
No, I mean,
actually, the South Bay is also very good.
Where are you located, Kathy?
North Bay.
We're in Petaluma. Where are you?
Northern Marin.
Oh, you're like 5 miles away. We should just get together and do this. Then you wouldn't have to worry about your microphone. You can bike up here.
She'd be better off in the parking lot with Wi-Fi than where she is now.
No, if we run out an Ethernet cord, I could plug directly. I need an Ethernet. I need a dongle, but yeah.
No, I understand. Oh, okay.
No, I mean, I used to cycle everywhere in the Bay Area too, but I didn't have an electric bike there because they weren't really straightpedal then.
Yeah, they are now, man. I mean, they're wonderful, Kathy.
Is it an assisted?
Yeah, it's pedal. They're all by law. They are pedal assist. Although, if you get one with a throttle,
yeah, you can. Well,
you needn't spend a lot of time pedaling.
There's different grades. I mean, there's ones that are basically motorbikes that are electric, but the primary thing is pedal assist, and it just means that when you hit a hill, you're not going to be sweating and getting grumpy because you can actually get up the hill more.
It's lovely.
That's what I need.
We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 electric bicycles. One of them is a trike, which I keep driving into a ditch because unlike a bicycle where you lean to steer, a trike you turn the handles to steer, and I keep forgetting that, and I'm leaning, and the bike continues in the direction of the ditch. It's okay. It's okay.
Why do you have a trike to pull the groceries back home, or what?
Well, I could do that with my other bike too because I have lots of panniers and baskets and things. But it was my theory because I don't want to get creamed. That if I, an old man, was driving a tricycle, people would go around me, but now I'm still not convinced of that. We have a ghost bike on the way to work. There's a bridge I'd have to go over that has a bike lane this wide.
Yeah, it's tiny.
And there's a ghost bike there where a guy last year got killed by an elderly motorist who had taken too much of his meds and just kind of, and I realized, in a battle against a vehicle, I don't care how many helmets I'm wearing, I'm not going to win. So,
yeah,
I have had a close encounter with a car.
It's terrifying.
And I was a kid, but sort of been there, done that. Don't need to.
Yeah. So unfortunately, there are lots of streets here with no sidewalk, no bike lanes, and very fast vehicles. We just like everywhere else in the country, we are not. I'm thinking of moving to Amsterdam.
I did a semester of law school in Germany. It was good.
Yeah. There are more bikes per capita in Amsterdam, in Holland, Netherlands.
I think they would look down upon you for an electric assisted bike, wouldn't they? It's just
I don't care. No. I'm not against it.
Well, I do, because I do it myself. That's what granny gears are for. I do it both ways, uphill, in the snow, whatever.
It's fine.
And I do it a lot.
It's good for you.
Well, when I grew up in New Jersey, I did it in the snow, but less of an issue out here.
It's good for you. I'm old.
San Jose
Kathy.
has got very
You're
good
young.
bike lanes. You can do that.
Does it?
Yeah.
Bike lanes honestly really ought to have concrete partitions between.
Yes, they should have separate barriers. That's
Yeah.
absolutely true.
Yeah, because it's just too easy to veer into or turn into.
Well, I had an annoying one today where I was cycling along, and some guy pulled in the bike lane to park because he was waiting for his kids to park.
Happens all the time. And I worried about being doored.
This was a separated bike lane. There was a grass verge and a red bike lane,
and he
pulled
still
up the grass
parked
verge
into it. Jesus. Well, I guess I'm not moving to the moors.
You can drive up like nice roads like the one behind me here. Look.
No, I know, isn't that? I would bicycle there like crazy.
Well, there's that you can see my bike behind me, leaning against the fence there, because then I just climbed up the stone road. On the bike to the bottom of that hill.
Oh,
a little black dot.
So this is your own image, your own picture.
Yeah, I took this
very
3 days ago. 3 days ago.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
So this is just miles from your home.
Yeah, there's a hill called Roseberry Topping, which looks like a volcano.
Of course, it's Roseberry Topping.
Of course it is. Yes.
It's a slightly weird shape because a chunk fell off it in the 19th century because they were mining stone and it fell off. So it looks vaguely volcano shaped. But then you can bike all the way around to the bottom of it, and then the last bit is this weird, not quite a path, not quite a staircase thing that you walk up to the top.
It looks a little difficult, but it'd be worth the challenge. And then, are there druid graves or something? Is it a druid?
No, not this one. No, there's a bunch of stone and a thing you put a theodolite on so you can a trig point. But yeah, there's the whole Cleveland Way, and there's lots of like nice walking paths and cycling paths around here.
So we played a little bit, or talked anyway, about DALL-E and DALL-E 2, which is from OpenAI, the kind of fun little image generation program where you write a text and then here's a bowl of soup that looks like a monster spray painted on a wall. And you see it's generating that. I haven't yet to get permission to go into it. Well, Google says hold my beer, and they've created something called Imagine at IMAGEN research.google. Imagen. But it's like imagining, right?
Yeah.
Same idea.
Well,
and
it's like generating images too. It's a pun.
Yeah. Imagine, imagine. 3 spheres made of glass falling into the ocean. So these have never existed before. Here's a bald eagle made of chocolate powder, mango, and whipped cream. This is not just looking up stuff on the internet. These are generated.
Android mascot made from bamboo, a really angry. The one amazing to me is a corgi on a bike.
I can't get back to it.
Corgi on a bike.
Yeah, I had it, and I can't get back to it. Anyway, that's kind of cool.
It's pretty amazing.
I wish you could play with it. Can you? Oh, here's the corgi on a bike.
No, well, you have to
Shiba
get
Inu.
access to it.
Yeah.
And
have you access to it?
No.
I'll ask for access.
Did you see the viral one? A centaur, except the man part is a jumbo shrimp. Did you see that one this week?
No.
Let me find that for you again.
Centaur, shrimp, and vital parts. Jumbo shrimp vital parts should be enough to narrow it down. Nope. Images for centaur shrimp vital parts gives me
centaur jumbo shrimp.
Centaur jumbo, maybe the word jumbo shrimp we'll
I
narrow
thought
this
you
down.
meant that just the man part was a shrimp, not the
Yes,
anatomy.
that's what it's supposed,
was
that's
the
what it's supposed to
Ah, ooh, this is disgusting. This is really loathsome. Is
Yeah,
this
that's
it?
quite a thing.
Oh,
Yeah, that's the one.
Yeah, here's
So
the tweet.
This isn't either of these two. This is another image generation thing that is in prototype.
It says, so Jenny
content
Bad
warning,
Shrimp,
endless screaming.
Jenny Bad Shrimp Bologna on Twitter, also known as Horse Wizard, says, okay, the AI refuses to give me a normal cat, but when I ask for a centaur, except the man part is a jumbo shrimp, it nails it.
So I asked someone who had access to DALL-E to try the same thing, and it wasn't as good.
Wow.
So I now want to see the image. I put the link in the chat.
Okay. Let's look at the chat. Which chat did you put that link into?
The live chat.
IRC. Okay. We have so many.
That's true. Yes, not the.
Here it is from
the chat.
Thinkwort. Not as good as the viral tweet. A centaur, except the man part is a jumbo shrimp.
It's just that she's not as nice as the other one. Well, not as.
Is this
scary as
this
the
is
other
from
one,
Imogen?
maybe. This is from DALL-E.
Dolly. Okay.
The thing where it said I've got.
It remembers what it produced and it won't produce it again because it's learned. It's sort of like I got that out of my system and now I've sort of incremented in some way.
But they do tend to give you. It does tend to give you multiple versions. And you're supposed to pick the good one. Yeah. So I want to see what Imogen does with this prompt.
Do you think,
Google may
Kevin,
not let you do it.
do you think, right now these are just silly toys, but
Yes.
we are close, do you think, to being able to actually say, President Biden falling down the stairs and getting an image that is indistinguishable from real?
I think the challenge is that's actually harder than you would think. I think these things, they show them with these sort of slightly Dadaist things because that works better. But and they're also trying very hard to not generate images of people at the moment. They're all like writing, oh, we shouldn't do that type stuff. But they will, it's stochastic parents problem again. They're going to generate images of people, and then they've got to deal with it. And then you'll find they're using people's faces they shouldn't be using, and it'll get in trouble.
How effective, though, in the long run are they going to be doing stuff like that? I mean, you can't only keep.
Have you ever seen a poll?
I'm sorry, Pandora's box closed so long.
Well, I mean, that's we've had this with the face generators. We know those have been around for a while, and those
Right.
plausible faces. If you look very closely, you can. Well, if you cherry pick them a bit, because it also generates like weird extra heads next to you sometimes.
Yeah, well, that's also what you have to do with text. You'll have GPT generate 5 different versions of the text and pick the one that's
and
the
then
most.
you should cherry pick the good ones.
Cherry pick.
And this was the critique we had of Google's new model when they were showing that off, and they were doing it again last week when they did. Was it I/O last week?
Yeah, I was last week. Yeah.
And they were doing the same thing of like, well, it makes stuff up sometimes, but it's still cool. It's like, no, making stuff up.
It's not cool.
In response to a search query is not cool.
Not cool.
Your entire job was organising the world's information, making it universally accessible and useful.
Not make
and
up
if you
new
just make
stuff.
shit up instead, that's not actually very helpful. That's the opposite of what you want to be doing. And if you're cutting out the middleman of the spammers who have been doing that to feed it into your search engine, but I'm not sure that's actually a helpful sort of disintermediation. Thank you.
It's kind of the way computer science is, that the first 80% is easy, but the last 1% is intractable.
Yeah.
Whether it's self-driving vehicles or face recognition or handwriting recognition or generating images or text, it's always that last little bit.
Some of them converge a bit better than others. I mean, the stuff they've been doing with audio processing is actually very impressive. But yeah, you've got the translator things that sort of mostly work, but they work with the languages that they've got. They're trying to scale them to other languages, and that's not as...
Somebody has an amazing simulation of an actual phone ringing. Oh, okay, it's Jeff. I know it's a simulation because no one actually has a phone that rings anymore. So, tough to forge digital driver's license is actually pretty easy to forge. A litany of security flaws. This is the government of New South Wales in Australia rolling out digital driver's licenses, they said would provide additional levels of security and protection against identity fraud compared to plastic driver's licenses. Well, no, not in fact.
This is doomed from the whole way that they decided that what they were trying to do was even better, because they were ignoring all the security problems.
Yeah.
You don't put your digital ID on your phone. You don't put it on something that you might hand to a cop. No, this wasn't something that was broken. Like the whole bit with like RFID chips in your passports, like, oh, this will make us safer in some way. No, it just provided another vector for attackers to suck up identities from. Like, it was just this idea that like, oh, we're just going to add this latest buzzword and everything will be miraculously wonderful. And this magical thinking is just absolutely terrible when it comes to particularly changing any system that worked in an offline analog into something digital. Like, it's so under-theorized, it's so undercooked, and making something digital does not make it better. It tends to introduce 1,000 more problems that you never bothered to anticipate.
Which is why, thank God, we're not voting on the internet yet.
Exactly. Like, that is a system where, no, this is not a thing that would help.
The Pixel Watch is going to have
but kind of like, Bitcoin. Like, oh, we're just going to add the blockchain.
Blockchain makes everything better, like bacon. Pixel Watch will have a 2-year-old Exynos 9110 processor, but will also have a physical USB-C port. What?
You charge it somehow, haven't you? So.
Yeah, well, I mean, yeah, but usually they charge it with some sort of puck or wireless charging thing. I don't really credit this. It'll have 32 gigs of storage. This is rumors. Even if you've announced something, apparently it's possible to have rumors. 32 gigs of storage is a lot. It'll have a lot of RAM as well. More RAM than any existing smartwatch today, according to 9 to 5 Google. And apparently it will have a USB-C port. Maybe that's just a diagnostic port. Early Apple Watches, I think, had something like that. So maybe that's...
So how is it they still haven't managed to integrate Fitbit with Google? I mean,
how
many software engineers they employ, and why is it still a third-party app called Fit to Fit that moves between the two?
You own it. I guess it's a hard computer science problem, Kevin.
I could see it being a regulatory compliance problem, that you've got to integrate these things and they may not be easily integratable, like even just from the privacy policy standpoint, that's going to take a lot of lawyer hours to do.
Has that deal actually closed? I think that was, we were waiting
for
that.
They own Fitbit. Yeah, they are Fitbit.
Yeah, they own Fitbit. So it's it's like, what?
But I suppose they may have
make
had
something new
policies.
instead.
Yeah. Let's see.
You don't get prone to Google for making things compatible. That's the problem.
Facebook is paying, if you are a resident of Illinois, Facebook is paying each and every one of you $397 because Illinois is one of the few states in the union that has a good anti-biometric law. It was a class action suit started in 2015. A lawsuit against Facebook because of a facial recognition feature the social media network used. It would recognize your face and tag you in photos. You may remember that. However, it is a violation of the Illinois state privacy law, which forbids any company from collecting biometric data from its users without consent. Big victory. $397. I'll take it.
I wonder who gets it and who doesn't.
I think everybody. I don't know.
Well, not everybody.
You probably have to be an Illinois resident.
You're in the class. Yeah. You have to be an Illinois resident. You have to have used Facebook, I guess. You have to sign up and file your claim and all that. But you'll be getting a check in the next few days. Look for an email, Illinois residents. Kellyanne Conway, my husband George abandoned me for Twitter. That's all.
Co-respondent in the divorce.
Are they getting divorced?
No, that's
That was a joke.
It's the strangest thing. I mean, her book is apparently fairly vicious about George, but they're still married, so I don't know. No one knows what really goes on inside a marriage. To each their own. I am not going to do a changelog. Sorry. Nope, not going to do it.
It's bad today? It's nothing good?
I'm just scanning through looking for fun. What is the Grubhub fiasco?
That was we talked about last week where they did a $15 coupon and thousands of orders came in.
Oh,
so
yeah.
This has more reporting about that.
Oh, God, what a mess.
What an incredible screw-up it was.
Especially since it costs Grubhub nothing and it costs the restaurants.
Well, now they're going to offer further coupons to people who didn't get their food and all that. But the poor restaurants just suffered terribly.
Yeah.
Terribly.
Yeah. I'm taking it that you pasted these in, like the introduction. I know I didn't paste in the introduction of Microsoft Excel in 1992.
Have you seen this one?
No, but shall I play it? All right.
Sure. A little long.
1992. It's on YouTube. This is apparently when Excel came out. It was on the Mac first, wasn't it? I feel like it was.
Tough woman goes by, clearly the boss, very nervous employee. Can't wait for somebody else to come in. The guy finally comes in, looking all too casual.
Buddy, I just saw Wilson. You're showing her the projections for the new vacation packages this morning.
I am?
Thank God I have Microsoft Excel.
Well, just wait.
Is this the greed is good era?
Come on, don't do this to me.
Yeah.
It's just one little spreadsheet. God, this could make or break the deal. Her exact words were 9 a.m. or never.
Calm down.
Don't you feel bad for these guys who are apparently real actors?
Oh, yeah.
Who got a gig? I got a gig. I'm going to be in an ad for Microsoft Excel. Not even an ad. It's a 4-minute. I don't want to watch the rest of it. Infomercial.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. Recording obsolete sounds. I found this one interesting.
I like this. We're going. By the way,
this is an effort.
in case you didn't notice, we're going through Jeff's submissions.
Jeff's weirdness.
Jeff's weirdness. But I do like this one because there are. What are obsolete sounds? What would you? What would be an example?
The sound of a VCR rewinding. The sound of a 300 baud modem.
Yeah.
They want people to record these sounds, so we have them, so we hold on to them. It'll soon be the sound of a dial tone, no doubt, or a rotary phone, or all these things. So they just want people to record. They don't have them yet, but it's one of those open projects where they want everybody to record sounds. So go find all of your right there at Twit. You could do 100 of these.
We have a lot of obsolete sounds here.
Oh, do you ever?
Citiesandmemory.com. Citiesandmemory.com. Which it loves sounds, I guess. It's the world's biggest sound project, global collaborative sound art and field recording program with the aim of remixing the world, one sound at a time. You want to hear today's featured sound?
Sure.
It is an early morning bird song at St. Leonard's Gardens, St. Leonard's on Sea, England. This sounds like Kevin Mark's house.
My California house.
Yeah. Yeah, we used to get birds.
Yes.
You'd be out by your orange tree. We'd get all sorts of birds.
Birds, yeah. Well, the birds are asleep now because it's 10 o'clock at night.
This is boring.
But why is this bird sound obsolete? That makes me
that's
sad
This
for
is
the bird.
no. That's
This is a
something
different project.
new.
This is cities and
The
obsolete sounds is a new project.
Right.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, the BBC sound archive, the sound effects archive.
That's an amazing. And
they
archive.
will have lots of obsolete weird stuff in there.
Yeah.
That's very good. It's very useful.
I have actually browsed the BBC Sounds Archive. That's amazing. That was created for their radio division, I guess, for radio plays and things like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it was, and they just gathered it over time, and they used to distribute it on record and CD. I remember getting a sound effects one out of the library when I was about 14 and playing it at home, and scaring the crap out of my mother because there was a huge explosion.
Now you've come up with a good use for these, though. That's good. Yeah. Let's take a little break. We are going to get some picks and ideas and stuff like that. I love you guys. Kathy Gellis, it's always great to have you. cgcouncil.com, and you'll read her stuff on Tech Dirt on a regular basis. Jeff Jarvis, Frank Sinatra called him a bum. He is a nickel millionaire, according to Ray Kroc. and a beloved member of our team, the only one who showed up today.
Yeah,
Kevin, Kevin Marks, also always glad to have Kevin on indieweb.org. Our show today brought to you by Policy Genius. Policy Genius. When you have kids, the first thing that goes through your mind is, I got some responsibilities now. And that very first thing I did is went out and got life insurance. Life insurance is, I think, one of those things, it's like being a grown-up. It gives you peace of mind. If something happens to you, your loved ones would have a financial cushion. You may have some life insurance through your job. I know we have some, but it's not a lot. Most people need up to 10 times more coverage to properly provide for their families. And of course, life insurance gets more expensive as you get older, so it's always a good idea to get your policy as young as you can. And if you're going to do it, you should shop around, because not all policies are created equal. That's how Policy Genius works. Policy Genius is one place to go, a one-stop shop to find the insurance you need at the right price. You click on the link on the show page, or you go to our website, the site we're talking about here, policygenius.com/twig. Our show notes will have it too, policygenius.com/twig, to get started. In minutes, you can compare personalized quotes from top companies to find your lowest price. And when I say low, you could save 50% or more on life insurance just by comparing quotes with Policy Genius. Now, because you're going to, end up buying life insurance, they have to be licensed agents. So there are licensed agents at Policy Genius who can help you. They're on hand through the entire process to help you understand what the options are. In fact, I would recommend you take advantage of this so that you're getting the right insurance. Make your decision with confidence. And it's important to know that the Policy Genius team is not working for the insurance companies. They're working for you. So you can absolutely take their advice. You can trust their information. It's really great. They don't add extra fees. You'll be glad to know they do not sell your info to third parties. In fact, if you go to Google or Trustpilot, you'll see thousands of 5-star reviews. You can get your coverage fast in as little as a week. You can also get coverage that does not have medical exams. That's nice if you want it. It just depends on the policy, obviously. Since 2014, Policy Genius has helped over 30 million people shop for insurance. They've placed over $150 billion in coverage. It's not a fly-by-night. They've been around since 2014, and a lot of people have used them. Now, it's not just for life insurance. They have home, auto, disability, renters, all the insurance. But I just kind of want to hit the life insurance thing. I've been thinking about that lately, and it's so important, especially when you have a young family. PolicyGenius.com/twig. And I have to say, my daughter's 30, my son's 27, and I feel like I still have to have a little responsibility to them. PolicyGenius.com/twig to get, someday though, they'll have a job to get free life insurance quotes and see how much you can save. PolicyGenius.com/twig. Does TikTok count as a job? I guess it does. He makes money at it. PolicyGenius.com/twig. We thank you, Policy Genius, for supporting This Week in Google. Now, Kathy and Kevin, I'm not going to put you on the spot unless you want to participate, but here's your opportunity. I know you're a Huey Lewis fan, Kathy Gellis, so go ahead. Give us your Huey Lewis pick of the week.
Well, you should, there's 2 tweets there. You should click on them because this is about the picture. So click on the Huey one first.
I got it. Here he is at the Andy. Now, Huey, can he speak? I know he can't sing. Can he speak?
Yeah, he can speak.
He just can't sing.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right. So he was out in Pittsburgh because he participated in some way with a film about endangered birds and bird conservation. And that film debuted at the Carnegie Center in Pittsburgh. So he was out there. And while he was in Pittsburgh, he apparently toured the Andy Warhol Museum. And this, I decided, meant that he was trolling me, because if you click on the other tweet, the one that from me.
Yes.
Okay, click on that and look at the picture.
Okay, yes. Oh, you did an Andy Warhol,
was my birthday cake.
Campbell's soup can on your birthday cake.
Right, because my birthday happens to be World Intellectual Property Day, according to WIPO, and I've decided, well, they could see me coming, so they made my birthday the day that we are going to celebrate intellectual property. And so every year for the last couple of years, I've tried to come up with a thematically appropriate cake. And in this particular instance, because of the terrible decision from the Second Circuit involving Andy Warhol, which kind of ruined fair use, which is now going to be heard by the Supreme Court, I decided that to celebrate World Intellectual Property, I had an Andy Warhol themed cake and I had to figure out how to do it. And I got, my Campbell's soup can. So I did that. That was like a month ago. And then Huey shows up, at the Andy Warhol Museum while Andy Warhol is so relevant to my life. So, this is just the synergy I have with Huey Lewis that like he plugs into the legal issues I'm thinking about and just, makes his own derivative works consistent.
You're going to better watch out. You're going to start getting ads for Huey Lewis merchandise in your Twitter feed.
This would be bad. I really don't understand. That would be fine. That would be fine for everyone.
What is the terrible decision? I didn't hear this about Warhol and his, is it about his Campbell's soup can?
Not the Campbell's soup can. It was about his Prince pictures where he had the Prince, 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 Prints. And, they were famous pictures where he had taken a photo and then he had kind of stylized them. And in the way that he stylized them, they became quite famous because they captured a certain essence of the artist Prince in a way that the original picture hadn't. And so these were, prototypical Warhol works that existed for a long, long time. And then the original photographer eventually discovered that it was her picture that had been used. And so she sued. And somehow the Second Circuit decided that she had a leg to stand on and that it wasn't fair use, and she had a claim against his estate now. There's some irony because the Warhol estate, I believe, has also sort of gone after other people for their potentially fair uses of Warhol works. But in this case, it really broke a lot. And it also ended up a decision that was inconsistent with Google versus with Oracle v. Google, which also addressed fair use. So there was a cert petition to the Supreme Court, and they agreed to hear this case. So hopefully it will straighten this case out. And the one that actually concerned me more was one from the Ninth Circuit, which I think was even worse, which had to do with the mashup of the Oh, the Places You'll Go, which was the Star Trek and Dr. Seuss mashup. And it was defended successfully at the district court, and then the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals just sort of tore up so much fair use. Wasn't fair use, you'd be liable. And that case ended up settling, but after this terrible decision that would have kept it going. And I think that one was even worse because at least in the Second Circuit case, you had a living copyright. The original artist was at least still alive and then going after art produced by somebody who no longer was. Whereas in the Ninth Circuit, you had the estate of a dead person shutting down future creative expression of a live person. And this is an awful lot of power that the dead would have over our lives if this is the way that fair use works. So I'm really hoping that we'll get some clarity from the Supreme Court to sort of make fair use be usable, because if it's chilling other works that bring new ideas and new thoughts together, but are built on the shoulders, you stand on the shoulders of giants, you use the works that came before to inform your creativity now, because that's how art works. This has to be something that you have a safe space to do. And if you don't have a reliable fair use defense, then you're not going to be able to do it. And that's an awful lot of new expression we're not going to get to experience.
It's kind of a weird case because the photographer it was licensed to Vanity Fair. He used it, then he continued to use it. She was unaware of it until she saw a Vanity Fair article in 2016 after Prince's death. The Warhol estate preemptively sued her. So she didn't even bring suit. They sued her preemptively and won. And then now she says, well, I don't think that's fair either. The judge said the transformation was sufficient, that the Prince series works can reasonably perceive to have transformed Prince. So, none of the parts of the original photo are still there, even though it is recognizable as an altered work of the original. She is now not countersuing. She's now appealing to the Supreme Court.
She appealed and she won, and now that's going to get reviewed.
Oh, so they're appealing. Okay. Okay.
Yeah. So yeah, I think the Warhol state probably did a declaratory judgment. They won for a finding of fair use. She appealed that. The Second Circuit undid it, and now that's being reviewed by the Supreme Court.
That's interesting.
But one of the big
it's
issues
transformative, right? That's your position. Is this is sufficiently transformative that it doesn't have to, they didn't have to license it from her.
The problem with the Second Circuit decision is it really conflated two things, where if this conflation could happen, then a lot of transformative works are in trouble, which is you do have the exclusive right as the copyright owner to control derivative works. But at the same time, fair use is found to be fair use when it's sufficiently transformative. So what does it mean if you've transformed something into something new? Have you now changed it and that's fair use, or have you essentially made a derivative work? And the way the Second Circuit decision reads is you made a derivative work of the original, but that would just obviate all sorts of transformative uses because in theory, they're inherently derivative. So there's got to be some other delineator to make that the new things that people are building, not something that the original copyright owner would have been able to control, because if they can control everything, then there's an awful lot of new stuff that can't be developed. And this is particularly onerous as copyright terms are just enormous and, generations long.
And we have an internet that's built on collaborative, building upon all creation has been built on prior creation, especially on the net.
Yeah.
Especially, yeah. So both cases from the Ninth and the Second Circuit are really troubling because you can't do anything new. The original person who may be dead gets veto power, and that's no way to run a railroad. The whole point of copyright law is because we want to keep getting new stuff, and so these decisions are standing in the way of getting new stuff because they're making it legally unsafe to make the new stuff.
Interesting. Very interesting.
Little did Huey know that that's the issue he wandered into. Maybe he did know. I should give him credit because he's Huey Lewis. He's wonderful.
Kevin Marks, you got a couple of things this week. Oops, he's muted. Is that us or you?
Sorry.
Yep.
One of them is, I'm talking about obsolete things, Mac OS 8.app.
You can boot. Wait a minute. Let's boot up a Mac running Mac OS 8. So in other words, JavaScript is fast enough to do System 8.
System 8 in the browser.
In the browser. Amazing.
And it's got a bunch of software in there. But also the thing that you can do with it is you can drag in ISO images for CDs. So I can actually play the old CD-ROMs that I made.
No.
Oh, wow.
And does it work?
Yeah.
Have you taken your old CD-ROMs and put them in there?
Let me give it a go. Hang on.
That's hysterical. I've got to play Dark Castle though while you're doing that.
Oh, I can't screen share.
That's okay. So are these the old CDs you did for the Beeb or what?
Yeah, well, Multimedia Corporation.
This was your first your first job practically.
Yeah, but you can download CD-ROMs off Internet Archive. And you can drag them in. Basically, but yeah, this is like retro Max.
It's hysterical. Look at that. Is there sound? John
should be.
Yeah, there should be sound on this. Okay. Turn it up. There we go. Oh, this was such a fun game.
Wow.
All right.
What year was this likely?
Oh, I don't know. 90.
This is original Mac, wasn't it?
It had been late 80s, early 90s, I think. Yeah. That's one. Now another. You don't care about Crypto Boy.
Okay, yeah. I don't. This is a TikTok one for Jeff.
Yeah.
Mention NFTs one more time, and it's guaranteed we're not it. You got open seat on your mind when it should be me that you prioritize. Trying to get through, but it don't compute. 'Cause you're busy aiming for the moon. You think I'm enthused, but I got some news.
Now wait a minute. She's lip syncing this. Is this somebody else's original?
It's her original, but she did a re-recording and then she left it out for people to sing along.
Salem Ilese on TikTok. SALEM ILESE. She's also on the YouTube.
Yeah. So So this broke out enough that she actually performed it live at Gary Vee's thing.
No, did she really? And how did they laughed, right?
I think so, yeah.
He's defending. He's got an OpenSea thing behind him. He's defending it, right? That's a great song. That could be a hit.
It's actually very catchy.
It's a great song. Well done. Bravo, Salem Ilese. Salemilese. I'm just saying it over and over so she won't sue me. And now, Jeff's stuff of the week. Jeff?
You know how I love technology, how its ability to solve problems. I was in Dos Toros, which is a knockoff of Chipotle in New York, where I get to get my lunches when I'm in the city, and I watched on the delivery line, woman doing a phone order, an online order, putting on absolutely everything on this burrito, right? And I think there's no way she's going to get that folded into her burrito. And she mushes it over and mushes it on and mushes it over and rolls it up tight as can be, and then gets the foil around and quickly tightens it up before it explodes, right? So there's a problem here that needs technology.
Yeah, because as soon as you unwrap that foil, it is going to explode.
It's going to explode. It's going to explode. So students at, where is it?
The Johns Hopkins, JHU, undergrads.
Have created an edible burrito tape.
To hold your burrito together. It's actually clear. They put some blue dye on the one on the right, but it's actually clear. And it's edible.
You won't even know you're eating it.
No.
It's edible.
Yeah. So Aaron Walsh told NBC Washington, "I'm a student athlete, so I'm not looking to make a skimpy burrito." They are applying for a patent, so they have not disclosed their formula. And you know what? I hope that Aaron Walsh, Marie Eric, and Rachel Nye become crypto billionaires by inventing burrito tape. All they can say is the ingredients are safe to consume, are food grade, and are common food and dietary additives. You know, you could actually probably use seaweed strips to do this, but that would add a little flavor.
Is it adhesive?
Yeah, it's gluey. It's what they hold sushi together. Yeah.
Well, but that's the rice, right?
I don't know. You're asking the wrong guy. I don't know.
You started it. I just gave you a nice burrito tape, and you got to say, no. It could
You
be
can use
something else.
seaweed to do it.
Jeez.
Do you want to do any of these other wonderful ones? But no, that's good enough.
Not only is crypto going down, but Rolexes are going down. People are panicked about that. I found a little bit of schadenfreude for that.
God. Yeah.
When are you going to wear your Rolex if you're busy wearing your Google Watch, Apple Watch, Fitbit,
That's right. That's
Garmin? Like, how many hands do you have?
Probably why the Rolex, apparently there is an index, the Rolex Watch Market Price Index. And I have to buy it to get 5 years of historical data.
I know. Yeah.
But it's been down last month. Woof. Plummeting since its peak back in April.
This was the NFT before there were NFTs.
Yeah, that's really true.
Ridiculously overpriced watches.
Yeah. The average market index of the 30 most popular Rolex models over time. Wow. Well, that concludes this edition of This Week in whatever the hell we want to talk about. Kathy, great to have you as always, Kathy Gillis. Next time, I'm going to make you come into the studio. That's what I'm going to make you do. You're going to sit right next to me, and the hell with
your
it.
bike, yeah.
Yeah, bicycle on up. You'll see her on Tech Dirt, cgcouncil.com. Kathy Gillis on the Twitter. Thank you so much, Kathy. Always great to have you on.
Thanks
really
for having me.
Appreciate it. Kevin Marks, always a pleasure to see you. IndieWeb.org. Indie Web Camp, regular meetings. I guess they're all virtual these days, so you can go.
There's one in about an hour and a half.
Nice.
Yep.
And it doesn't matter where it is. How well attended are those?
We get like a half dozen to a dozen people.
I really want. I have
the weekly things.
I have a static Hugo blog. I recently added the ability to comment on it, but you have to comment on Mastodon, which is nice. But I want to add web mentions to it, so that's going to be my project for the weekend. Yeah.
Come to chat.indieweb.org. People have already done it, so I think you'll find people to talk to about it.
Yeah.
The channel there's two ways to do it with a static one. You can have a JavaScript thing that will load the comments, like which I do on mine.
Right.
Or you can bake them into it at rebuild time, but then you've got to rebuild it each time you get a comment or something.
Yeah.
Which makes it a little trickier.
The nice thing about Hugo, it takes no time to rebuild it. I might just make a cron job.
I just do that. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, but people have done that. But I on my side, I do it. I have the comments coming dynamically from an external server.
Nice. The only bad thing is I know no one's commenting about my blog, so it'll just be depressing. But I still want to do it in spirit.
If you wire it to Bridgie, you get tweets as well. So
yeah, that's nice. Yeah, I'll use Bridgie. Yeah, there's some really cool technologies, and I wish more people would. Do you feel like there is more awareness, or is it just kind of it's a group of people?
It's happening. Yeah, I mean that's what I'm saying. We were having a conversation with Tumblr about integrating with them, which would be great if we.
That's huge. Yeah,
Tumblr's
that's really huge.
So that's good.
It all starts at indieweb.org.
Yeah.
Anything else you'd like to say? You can use this.
I think that's it.
This moment in front of the microphone. And then, of course, there's Jeff Jarvis, the director of the Townite Center for Entrepreneurial Journalism at the Craig Newmark Graduate School of Journalism at the City University of New York. Our good friend. What are you having tonight for dinner?
My wife made something good last night. We had leftover ham.
Oh.
And it was just a thing with that.
You know what Dorothy Parker said? Eternity is a ham and two people. And on that note...
I thought it was a fruitcake.
Fruitcake, that works as well. Thank you, Kathy. Thank you, Kevin. Thank you, Jeff. We do This Week in Google every Wednesday, 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern, 2100 UTC. You can watch us do it live, live.twit.tv. Then you'll hear all the F-bombs unexpurgated. If you're chatting, chat with us at irc.twit.tv. There were a few this week. You can also...
There was one in the song, yeah.
Yeah, there was one in the song, yeah. But we'll bleep them before they go out. You can also chat with us in our Discord if you're a member of Club Twit, which I highly recommend. Not only do you get access to a really great conversation about our shows, you also get to participate in conversations about pretty much everything under the sun, from anime to hacking to photography to sports to travel. And you get ad-free versions of all of our shows, and you get the Twit Plus feed, which features shows we don't even put out as podcasts, like the Untitled Linux Show. And Stacy's Book Club is coming up. Termination Shock will be the book from Neil Stevenson.
Is that the title, the Untitled Linux Show?
Yeah. They wanted to have a title. I said, no, keep it.
Good, I like that. Yeah, I do like that.
There were a lot of, corny things with talks and stuff. And I thought, no. Untitled Linux Show. It's perfect. Yeah. So that's the name of it. We also have the Giz Fizz, Dick T. Bartolo's weekly venture into weirdness and a lot of other things going on. And all of that is available on the Twit Plus feed or as a member of Club Twit. You know, it's easy. It's $7 a month. Go to twit.tv/clubtwit. And it really helps us out. So thank you in advance. After the fact, on-demand versions of the show are available with ads intact at twit.tv/twig on the YouTube channel that's dedicated to This Week in Google. Every show actually has its own YouTube channel. And, of course, like all our shows, you can subscribe in your favorite podcast client. And if you subscribe, you'll get it the minute it's available, so you don't have to even think about it. Just listen at your leisure. Thanks for joining us, everybody. We'll see you next time on This Week in Google. Bye-bye. There he is, my pal, Jeff. My pal.
Hey, I'm Rod Pyle, editor of Ad Astra magazine, and each week I'm joined by Tarek Malik, the editor-in-chief over at Space.com, in our new This Week in Space podcast. Every Friday, Tarek and I take a deep dive into the stories that define the new space age. What's NASA up to? When will Americans once again set foot on the moon? And how about those samples from the Perseverance rover? When are those coming home? What the heck has Elon Musk done now? In addition to all the latest and greatest in space exploration, we'll take an occasional look at bits of spaceflight history that you probably never heard of, and all with an eye towards having a good time along the way. Check us out on your favorite podcatcher.